No, you can. See, you're like you're not focused.
That's exactly what I am focused. I'm not focused on you, but I'm focused on
No, you should be focused
things.
on getting the news because people are busy. Come on.
Okay, good stuff. Any crack?
All good.
How are you keeping?
Doing good. I thank God.
Good stuff. How's your week gone so far?
Nice.
Did you do anything nice?
No, just normal stuff. Housey stuff. Have to do the big shop and
the big
all
shop.
That. Go to teeth clean today.
Very
Take
good.
wheelie to appointment.
Get that one for free. The teeth
no,
clean?
this is a pay me job. This one, I would say.
Oh no.
Do you know?
What are you going to get done? Just to clean?
Just to clean now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they ever give out to you? No.
No.
Okay, that must just be.
Do they usually give out?
Well,
who do you go to that gives out to you?
You don't brush the back of your teeth. You don't brush inside.
But there's a whole different way now of brushing your teeth, not the normal way that we were taught when we were at school. Do you know that you use electric toothbrush?
No.
Do you not?
No.
Why not?
I'll tell you exactly why. Because I buy an electric toothbrush.
You can't replace the heads.
Then the head goes flat, and then that's it.
Just buy a few extra heads.
Yeah, but they're all different. There's about 1 million heads.
But see, now, you know the way they tell you how you should use the electric toothbrush is like this here?
Up and down?
Up and down. No, I just hold it in place on each tooth
This world's just gone woke to the point now it's crazy.
You just get on with the news now, Daddy, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.
All right, take care, Lee. It is 9:01. Let's get that news update that Lee keeps talking about. And it's over to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. Counting is resuming around now in the European Parliament elections. 9 seats still to be filled with no new MEPs elected since Tuesday. The Midlands North West count will see the votes of Senator Niall Blaney distributed over the course of the next hour or so. SDLP leader Colm Eastwood says the treatment of Bloody Sunday families seeking justice for the murder of their loved ones has been disgraceful. It comes after the family of William McKinney confirmed the PPS has failed to challenge anonymity for Soldier F, who is charged with the murder of 2 and the attempted murder of 5. With more, here's Quisha Connolly.
In a statement, the Foyle MP says the treatment of the Bloody Sunday families has been a disgrace for the past 50 years and it remains a disgrace today. Once again, he says they've been forced to press the Public Prosecution Service to act in the public interest and to treat the individual accused of murdering their loved ones in the same way that other defendants are treated. Mr Eastwood says William McKinney's family are right to say the PPS should have made an approach to them about a decision not to challenge the anonymity of Soldier F. He adds the pretense that the anonymity order means anything is a sham after he himself named him in the House of Commons. Mr Eastwood concludes every one of the families and every person in Derry knows who he is.
A Hamas official is accusing the US Secretary of State of bias for blaming them for the failure to reach a ceasefire agreement. A plan approved by the UN Security Council on Monday is on the verge of collapse after Anthony Blinken said the militant group proposed some unworkable changes to it. Bus-Éireann has confirmed its Derry to Galway route will become wheelchair accessible at key end-to-end points. Stations in Letterkenny, Ballyshannon, Sligo and Galway will be designated wheelchair accessible from the 23rd of this month. Councillor Jimmy Kavanagh says Bus-Éireann is promising more.
And they've also indicated that as they can, they will add further stops as well. So it's good news for all those people who need wheelchair access for healthcare appointments in Sligo and Galway, or for going on break, or to attend a concert or whatever, that there now will be an accessible bus service on that route.
As efforts begin today to avert an Aer Lingus pilots' strike, the airline says pay rises being sought by pilots are outrageous. There are fears flights could be grounded within weeks after members of the Irish Airline Pilots Association voted for the action. They want wage hikes of up to 24%, despite the 9% rise recommended by the Labour Court. Donal Moriarty is the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Aer Lingus.
They're looking for a €50,000 pay increase for senior pilots. That €50,000 increase is more than the total annual pay of 3,500 of our 5,500 employees. So aside from this proposed increase being untenable from a corporate perspective and for the future of our business, it's actually unconscionable.
Rain will become widespread throughout the morning and this afternoon. Some of that rain heavy, becoming mostly dry as we get into the evening. It'll be breezy today with top temperatures of 13 to 16 degrees Celsius. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news in full at 10 o'clock. Check out today's news.
At Allianz, we've been in Ireland since 1902. So we've seen a lot. Risings, tigers, clashes, crashes and recovery. And we've been around through it all. So here's to another 120 years of protecting the people of Ireland. Visit allianz.ie for a car, home or pet insurance quote. Existing customers can save an extra 5% when you buy an additional policy online. 5% multi-policy discount in addition to existing online discounts for car, home and pet insurance. Alliance PLC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Standard acceptance criteria, minimum premiums, terms and conditions apply.
And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest. The 9 to Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It is 5 minutes past 9 on this Thursday, which is the 13th of June. How are you all keeping? I do hope you're very well indeed, and you're welcome aboard for the next 3 hours where we will keep you informed and entertained. Okay, the lines are open for you right now if you want to get involved in the programme, raise an issue, comment on what we're talking about. WhatsApps and texts to 086 60 25,000, 086 60 25,000. And of course, your voice notes can come into WhatsApp on that number as well, if that suits you. Not everyone's fancies typing, or it suits them, or perhaps, you know, they don't want to or can't. So voice message, have your say that way. We want to hear from you, however. If you want to give us a call too, we've got Caroline on the phone lines, of course, as the show's producer, assisted by Shannon. 074 91 25,000. You can get through to them. 074 91 25,000. And if you want to email us, it's comments@highlandradio.com. Right, on to the newspapers this morning. Thursday, always a bumper day for papers. We'll start with the Tyrconnell Tribune. Their headline, crushing election blow for Fine Gael. As Donegal's political parties analyse their votes in the local elections, the newly elected members will meet in Lifford next week to hammer out a pact to cover the next 5 years. New names, new agendas and priorities on the campaign trail, waiting urgently to be made into policy decisions. And there are changes, with Fianna Fáil losing 2 seats. Fine Gael are down to 3 members, and their share of the vote in Donegal has crashed to an all-time low of 10.5%. Sinn Féin held their 10 seats, while John O'Donnell's defeat cuts the strength of the independents to 9. But the story of the week has been the stunning success of the 100% Redress Party. They won 4 seats, but more importantly, they have a base of 7,400 first preferences on which to build a general election campaign, which might start needing to be built very, very soon, because we'll hear later on how an October general election seems to be in the offing. On to the Donegal news this morning. I threw everything at it. Niall Blaney is gracious despite defeat in the European elections. Despite a strong polling in Donegal with close to 15,000 first preference votes, about 20% of the total polled in the county, Fianna Fáil's Niall Blaney will miss out on a seat in the European Parliament, although counting was still ongoing yesterday morning when he spoke to the Donegal News. It was clear that Senator Blaney was not in contention for one of the 5 seats. However, he said he was happy that he did everything he could. Now, counting is ongoing. We'll get an update from you there. It's still pretty tight for the 5th seat here in the Midlands Northwest region. And kind of interesting, just reflecting yesterday, I posted on social media, had quite a bit of response, some positive, some negative. But it was in relation to the decision by certain politicians not to canvass up here or to engage in the process. And it kind of irks me, because what MEPs will say to you is that, oh, well, we can't get on radio, no one cares about what's happening in Europe, blah, 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 blah. But they pick and choose themselves when they wish to speak to the media. And Barry Cowan, Michelle Gildenew, who else? Nina Carberry. They simply did not want to come on and debate on Highland Radio because they weren't debating in this area. And then it was pointed out to me as if it were a defence that, well, the reason they're not doing that is because the boundary is split and this is the norm. Of course it's the norm. But I presume if Nina Carberry was looking for votes, she would like Maria Walsh 1 and then Michelle Gildenew 2. I think the days whereby you just don't speak to large swathes of an electorate because of a pact to try and get people over the line. For me, I don't like it. I think it should be dead and buried at this point. And yet we'll get press releases sent in because they'll want to speak to the people of the Northwest, the farmers, the fishermen, and whatever. And they'll go, well, why aren't you bringing me on the radio? Now, I'm not saying we're not bringing people on the radio, by the way. We speak to everyone equally. But ironically, I'll be thinking, well, you didn't want to speak to us in the run-up to the election. Why are we so important to you now? You're not being elected to represent the south of Midlands Northwest. You're seeking to be elected to represent all of it. And I think all of the candidates, if they're interested in our votes in the Northwest and our respect over the next 4 or 5 years, then they should have engaged with us. But anyway, that's that. I could be wrong. That's how I feel. But as I say, it would never influence us bringing people on into the future. That's not how we operate. The Dairy News this morning, a number of jobs are set to be axed at a dairy call centre, it can be revealed. First Source announced to staff on Wednesday the number of redundancies would be taking place. The company said that approximately 50 of the 63 affected employees live in the Derry area. I hope it's not a trend that we're seeing, because I do know we don't talk about, we sort of say we generally accept that the country's at full employment. That's slowing down now, and there are just little stories that you're hearing about different employers about less work, laying people off, and I just hope that's not the next cycle that we're going into. I really do hope that is not the case. The Irish Times this morning, Green MEPs' hopes fade as party rounds on Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. The Green Party's hopes of salvaging sitting MEPs Grace O'Sullivan's seat in Ireland South were fading last night as the smallest of the coalition parties faced up to one electoral mauling, while its biggest partners in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil enjoyed much better election results. The Greens' disappointment led to further criticism of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil from Green Deputy Leader Catherine Martin yesterday. The counts were continuing in Cork and Castlebar last night, while it is hoped that Ireland South could conclude today Midlands Northwest, where Independent Ireland's Kieran Malooly is likely to scrap for the last seat, with Sinn Féin's Michelle Goulden, who is expected to continue into tomorrow. Last night, as the counts continued, Luke Flanagan, who's an independent, retained his commanding lead in Midlands Northwest, having garnered 89,660 votes after 14 counts. The quota in the constituency stands at 113,325. Now, the whole Green thing is quite kind of interesting because, even say, for instance, during our debates, Lisa Chambers was very much sort of, I don't know, how could you say, critical of the Greens and policies in that regard. Others were as well. And I think the Greens have sort of taken the hit on that because it's not just in this part of the world, it was right across the country. And the Greens have become pretty toxic now because, of course, we had this green wave, didn't we? But now it seems that a lot of the negativities is being placed at the doorstep of the Green Party. So, A, they've lost an awful lot of their representatives, but B, I think their time in government is over because I don't know how desperate you'd have to be. And I don't mean this is in any way offensive to the Greens, but how you'd have to be really, really desperate, I think, to go back into government with them again because there's a bit of a toxicity there amongst the voting public. I don't think they're going to have a very good general election. That has to be said. On to the Irish Independent. Obviously, a lot of the parties are reflecting on their weekend. Mary Lou McDonald's promise to rerun family and care referendums hurt Sinn Féin in the local elections, party members have said. A TD admitted campaigners were confronted on the doors by voters, while a councillor said voters told him they would not vote for the party because of its stance on the referendum. Councillor PJ Carey said party leader Mary Lou McDonald's promise that the family and care referendums wouldn't be run again, came up on the doors more than immigration. Sorry, they would be run again. There's a wee black mark there. But you see, at that time, and I remember that story, Pádraig McLaughlin was on with us saying, well, no, she never said that. But once it was out there, and nothing could be done to sort of to take that back. Miss MacDonald later backtracked on the promise. The public on the doors were annoyed. They told me they would not vote for Sinn Féin because of it, said Councillor Carey. I would say it was a mistake to suggest running a referendum again if you didn't get the favoured results. Maybe we're seen now as mainstream party. Maybe some felt a bit of resentment or anger over that. And the problem Sinn Féin face now and heading into a general election is to be seen to be the change or an alternative to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And that is the challenge that they have to face. And they don't have an awful lot of time to sort that out because the messaging is going to have to become clear and refined and certain and unwavering. The Daily Mail this morning: Ukrainian refugees are under threat of being made homeless as the new 90-day limit on state-provided accommodation kicks in. The first Ukrainians to be affected by the 90-day limit, introduced on March 14th to reduce Ireland's pull factor as a refugee destination, were due to leave designated accommodation centres yesterday. One family who left their centre yesterday are understood to have found a home in pledged accommodation, a room in a private house or a vacant house, but more refugees who do not yet have anywhere to go are due to leave centres in Kildare and Limerick in the coming weeks. A source working with Ukrainian refugees said it is uncertain what is going to happen to dozens of people leaving designated accommodation centres over the next 2 weeks. They are under threat of being made homeless. That being said, I'm not sure how many arrived into Ireland once that 90-day limit kicked in, but those that did are going to be affected by that, we're told. The Irish Farmers Journal this morning: West of Ireland farmers are in line to receive a €15 million convergence boost, Department of Agriculture figures show. A department analysis of payments under the Basic Income Support for Sustainability shows the money is set to flow from 15 counties in the south and east to 11 counties, mainly in the country's western fringe, as a result of the current cap. A detailed payment analysis obtained by the Irish Farmers Journal paints a clearer picture of the impact of 85% flattening. This confirms that Mayo, Kerry and Donegal will be the big winners, with BISS payments to these counties increasing by 3.2 million to 3.5 million, or by 8% to 9%. So hopefully some of you out there are affected by that and will benefit. The Irish Daily Star this morning: Independent Thomas Pringle has offered a bail surety at the High Court for a man wanted in the North to face a charge that he murdered an RUC officer nearly 50 years ago. Detective Sergeant Adrian Murray told the court yesterday that he arrested John Edward McNichol, who's 72, at the defendant's home in New Mills, Letterkenny. McNichols is alleged to have murdered RUC Constable Robert Lynn McPherson and to have attempted to murder a second RUC officer on July 26, 1975. Mr Justice Patrick McGrath consented to bail. The case will come before the court again on June 19th, and the hearing will take place on July 2nd. And that is a story that I, in my own time, want to dig a little bit deeper into to see how that, maybe someone out there knows, were letters of comfort issued to any of these people? Why are they not offered any sort of protection, in inverted commas, from the Good Friday Agreement? All stuff that in my own time I'd be interested to dig into. Right, the Irish Sun this morning, and it's labelled an exclusive, but it's a guess. The government is planning a general election the week before Halloween, we can reveal. Aides have penciled in Friday, October 25th, as they hope to cash in on an early September budget that will see billions doled out. It comes after Taoiseach Simon Harris helped Fine Gael to success in the local and EU elections, with Regina Doherty elected an MEP. But it has to be said that a reasonable local election does not necessarily make a general election success. And finally, in the Irish Daily Mirror, another story from RTE. RTE could give a €400,000 redundancy payment to a staff member, but has refused to say who, an Oireachtas committee heard yesterday. Appearing before the Joint Committee on Culture and Media, new RTE chairman Terence O'Rourke also declined to say if the payment would be made to an individual who had refused to appear before the committee. 086 60 25,000 is the WhatsApp and text. I just want to reference as well, by the way, the Fab Four, another Irish track medalist, 4x400 girls take silver relay. Ireland's Fab Four of Sophie Becker, Rasadat Ardelecki, Phil Healy and Charlene Wardsley delivered a silver disc in Rome. Fantastic stuff. I didn't get to see that, but brilliant result for the ladies. Okay, we'll be back with more after we take a quick break. Stay where you are.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Kelly's Centra and Diner, Mountaintop Letterkenny, winner of Best Family Dining at the Highland Radio Hospitality Awards. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Hello, Declan Lerner here. Looking forward to seeing all our dancing friends in the Plaza, Buncrana this Saturday night. Dancing 10 to 12, admission €15. That's the Plaza, Buncrana.
With over 1,000 TFI Local Link door-to-door services nationwide, if you're on our route, we're on our way. To use the service, simply pre-book the day before you want to travel with your TFI Local Link office. To find out more about door-to-door services in your area, visit transportforireland.ie. We're Transport for Ireland. We're transport for you.
The sun's splitting the stones, so you bang on the barbecue.
2 minutes later.
There's great drying out, so you hang out the washing to save some lecky.
2 minutes later.
There's no controlling the Irish summer, but you can control your energy costs thanks to hourly insights from Prepay Power. Switch now and enjoy our €100 welcome bonus. That will brighten up your day. Prepay Power. Be energy wise. Available for a limited time only. For T-Season rates, see prepaypower.ie.
Visit Heron Auto Donegal Town for an incredible range of Kia 242 offers. Check out our range of diesel, hybrid, plug-in hybrid and fully electric EVs, as well as exciting models like the new 7-seat Sorrento. With finance available from 0%, a free home charger and a €500 super value gift card on all orders before June 30th. Visit Heron Auto, Killybegs Road, Donegal Town or see heronauto.ie.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Discover the award-winning Central Hotel Donegal Town, where exceptional dining meets stunning surroundings. Enjoy quality cuisine from 8 a.m. until 9 p.m, including breakfast, brunch, bar food or exquisite evening a la carte menus. Experience our unique local Asian fusion dishes, expertly crafted by our talented chefs in our newly renovated Chapman's restaurant. For the perfect dining experience, book now by calling the Central Hotel Donegal Town on 074 9721 027.
The Donegal branch of Diabetes Ireland is hosting a family educational weekend in the Great Northern Hotel Bundoran, the Saturday the 15th of June. It will include educational workshops from 10 a.m. until 3, delivered by the diabetes team from Letterkenny University Hospital and the Community Hub. These are also open to the public. So if you're living with diabetes, feel free to drop in this Saturday to the Great Northern Hotel Bundoran.
Now, there's a new survey out which really only underlines the lived experience of many families across the Northwest, because we hear from them on a regular basis here. Grania Morrison is a spokesperson for Families for Reform of CAMHS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. Grania's with me now. Hiya, Grania.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm good. Right. Now, you surveyed 736 parents whose child in some cases may be suicidal as they reach out to the CAMHS services. What was the feedback, the headlines from engagement with all those parents?
Well, obviously quite startling, as we were expecting. What we in April we set upon a survey, a mammoth survey of 80 questions. As you say, over 736 respondents came through. So the key findings were, I suppose for every family, it was the difficulty at every stage of going through CAMHS. The doors tended to be only opened if a child became critically unwell. There was a huge negative impact on families, from financial burdens to having to go down a private route. Additional steps often required, like going to an A&E, so a child presenting in A&E suicidal, or going to a local TD, or going down, as I said, the private route. What really came out was the lack of supports and interventions beyond medication, and the availability of interventions varies throughout CAMHS all over the country.
Before we go through that, Grania, you mentioned the private route. Now, that is, I think, for the majority of people listening to us, no matter how you try and divvy up the income you might have coming into your house, is going to be a problem, because it's incredibly expensive. And it must be just so difficult for parents who might feel let down by the public services to then inquire what they can do for their child privately and look at the figures that would be required and say, we simply cannot do that. What an awful position for parents to find themselves in. Can you give us an idea of the cost of going down the private route?
Absolutely. So at minimum, for an assessment, a private assessment in Ireland would cost €700, and then €150 for every appointment then after that, and that's at minimum. You can go from anything from 750 to €2,000. So it's, for a lot of families, it's non-reachable. And in fact, one of our survey, one of the recipients, and I'm quoting her here, saying, "It breaks my heart to think of what kind of life she could have had if she wasn't thrown out on the scrap heap because her parents couldn't afford an earlier diagnosis. Maybe that could have made a difference. We will never know." Like, that's startling, kind of how it affects families. It's huge. And a lot of our families, a lot of parents would have to leave work. The respondents came in, 33% of families members had to leave employment. 32% of those had to take unpaid leave, and 16% are on carers leave. So that's massive.
So what is there's no typical journey, but what would be a something that we'd expect to happen, a journey for a family in engaging with CALM? So they're at home and the child or the young person is unwell, mentally unwell. So at what point would they sort of engage with CALMS? Would the GP reference them and say, your child probably needs some state mental health services, so I'm going to refer them to CALMS? And then explain that, and then Grania, if you can pick it up after that, sort of the likelihood is this is not like a broken leg that just sits there as a broken leg. Okay, often a child may continue to deteriorate whilst waiting to see someone. So can you talk us through an example of someone's experience?
So again, we surveyed this and, found that it was very unlikely. It was maybe 40 to 50% of children would be accepted on the first referral. And that would be, in Donegal alone, you've got, in CH1 alone, the waiting list, the Maskey report came out, the waiting list was 35 days for suicidal intent, 80 days for suicidal ideation, 60 days, these are all days, for eating disorders. And for deliberate self-harm would be 60 days. So that's, these are children that are critical, and that's how long it's, taking them to see them.
If there's a young person who is saying that they are thinking about suicide, or it's crossing their mind, or it's in their mind, and they're referred, it could be 80 days at least before they see someone in CALMS.
Yes, and that's in CHO1. That's in
our
Donegal
area,
catchment area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was figures that from the Maskey report there last year.
That's scary. It's very, very, very worrying.
You can imagine if you were a parent or a child.
Yeah, and as I said too, whilst sitting on these waiting lists, Grania, in many cases too, the condition of the young person can worsen.
Absolutely, 92%. And I'm sorry I'm talking in stats and figures because I hate this. There's a child. Yeah, there's a child behind every one of these stats. But 92% of the families responded that their child's mental health deteriorated whilst waiting for support from CALMS.
And there's two things that's going on for me in this, in that obviously you have that immediate support that really needs to be there, Grania. But the longer someone goes, I think, without support or intervention, firstly the potential for a very, very bad outcome, but also too, it carries on into their adult life and as they get older too, because we're not seeing them and helping them early enough.
It's totally true. And, we wonder why we have such a mental health crisis in Ireland, and we wonder why we have such a high suicide rate. I think in our 18 to 25-year-old male population, we have the highest suicide rate in Europe. Mm-hmm. So early intervention is key, and I know it's the buzzword, but it's absolutely and utterly key.
And if I could just add a comment to this, Grania, because it often comes in, say, for instance, when we're talking about all the attention that's given to fatal road traffic collisions, and quite rightly so, and no one's saying we shouldn't do that. But then people go, well, there's another problem here as well, a significant problem, and that is the rate of suicide. Why aren't we seeing action on this? Why aren't we seeing plans on that? But the bottom line is, Grania, I think the reason we don't is because, say, for instance, they were government-sponsored, it would eventually come back to, the problems right back here at the very beginning, where we're not actually getting in early intervention to help people.
Absolutely.
So you bury it. You just don't talk about it. You leave it under the carpet.
Absolutely. And that's the sad thing about it. The problem is multifaceted, and a lot of the problems are, a lot of the children that are seen in CAMS would be neurodivergent. And what I mean about to define neurodivergent is a child who is either autistic or ADHD or dyslexic or dyspraxic. Mm-hmm. They would be the highest, and those, as we see earlier on, through the AON process, the roadblocks that are going through that as well. So it is a multifaceted problem. But, talking about CAMS, this is crisis. Kids are getting to crisis stage, and kids, the data suggests that autistic kids would be 28 times more likely to die by suicide than their neurotypical peers. That's horrendous.
And this is not something we're reflecting on back 80 or 90 years ago and saying it was a failure and we should have done this and we should have done that. We're living through this right now. At the same time, we're seeing record levels of young people ringing the likes of Childline and other services, record levels of children, very sadly, that are the victims of abuse, be it from, adults or peer to peer. We can't, there comes a point where we can't stand back and sort of not see this for the absolute tragedy that it is. I mean, we're living in it right now. And I think we as a society should be more angry about this. I hear an awful lot, and I understand it, and I'm saying it's wrong, about what threats may be coming to children, or that our children may become unsafe for whatever reason. I'm not getting into that. And yet here we have this dire situation that's all of our own doing and really in our control, and no one's talking about that, or not enough people, I don't think, are talking about it, except the families that are having to live this nightmare on a day-to-day basis, left alone, struggling, seeing their young people get worse in the house, wondering, I'm probably afraid to leave them for 5 minutes on their own even.
Yeah, and we've had, reports from families saying that CAMS are telling them to take sharp objects away from them, so it's so sad. It's so sad in a country that's awash with money. And, politicians have the power and can change this. The Maskery report has, issued a huge amount of mental health, forms. The committee on the Oireachtas Committee for Children Integration recommended there in May 50 million to be instantly given to CAMS. So we'd ask government to engage and, to prioritise reform.
Is this, if I was speaking to a government representative, and in these cases we always do invite, just for balance and fairness, Grania, would they say, look, we've pumped in millions into this, there's no end of money going into this area, but it's about recruitment of staff and all that kind of stuff? Do you know what I mean? Because often that's where these conversations end up being. Or is more money required? And if that money were allocated, then we would see these waiting times reduced.
Yeah, well, there's definitely more money required. CAMS is very much understaffed. And, I talk about CAMS and people think, staff are, very vulnerable as well. In our survey, there were staff members, it was highlighted that only for certain staff members that children came through their times in CAMS. But staff are vulnerable. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're not paid enough, and there's a government, or there's a HSE embargo on staff at the moment, so people aren't being recruited into posts. The Psychiatric Nurses of Ireland, I believe, are taking action. So I know money is a problem, but there's money in the country. It can be given, to CAMS to help. At the minute.
Well, the government would say they've invested €1.3 billion in mental health services. In April, they said there were 12% more CAMS appointments offered to children and young people last year. Waiting lists for CAMS services continue to fall. Nearly 500 fewer children waiting by the end of 2023. And then they say the funding will be spread more geographical. Like €1.3 billion is a huge investment. It would make you wonder a little bit like the health service, if that money's being administered correctly. But do you recognise that there has been a 12% increase in appointments for children in 2023 that waiting lists continue to fall?
I would love to see how they calculated those waiting lists and what key performance indicators they used to identify it. Because if they used, and our families are seeing, that our autistic kids are being discriminated against in CAMHS. And a lot of families couldn't get into CAMHS. They were told either your child is autistic, look for support in CDNT. CDNT might come back and say your child is too anxious for us, you need to go back to CAMHS. And then the difference, again, the Maskery reports for CHO1, per capita funding last year was €78.80, whereas in CHO7 it's €125.50. So there's a vast difference in monies allocated.
So are you, just to be clear, and I don't want to be misreading your comments, it seems the most complex cases are passed from pillar to post. Is that because lack of expertise in joined up thinking, or are the services treating taking cases that are easier to resolve? Do you get where I'm coming from? I'm just wondering, is the system not set up correctly to properly deal with complex cases, or are they being purposely discriminated against because it clogs up the system or something like that there? It's a crude question, but I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it, Grania.
I'm to be honest with you, I don't know. But the figures that we have would suggest that there might be some handpicking of cases.
Right, that's the question. Yeah, that's what I was asking. That's worrying.
So,
okay. Right, Grania, listen, thank you very much for your time. Sorry if I took up too much of your time. I know you're busy this morning. Have a lovely day, please.
Same to you, Greg, and thanks very much for having us.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Grania Morrison, spokesperson for Families for Reform of CAMHS.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Join me, Marty Friel, this and every Friday night from 8 for Rockin' Hits on Highland Radio in association with Arena 7 Letterkenny, the best family entertainment complex around with bowling, laser quest, soft play centre and more. Visit arena7.ie.
Millions flowing west in farm payment changes. For more in your Irish Farmers Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
For the first time, we reveal how much your county is winning or losing from cap payment flattening. We look at the high-profile farmers who missed out in local elections. Larry Goodman's succession plans revealed. Strong demand driving sheep trade. Water quality report does not bode well for nitrates derogation. And we talk to family carers who feel abandoned by government.
All inside the Irish Farmers Journal, on sale now.
Sit back, relax and sink into the comfort of a new sofa at Easy Living Furniture Sofa Sale. Luxurious designs, unbeatable prices and endless comfort await you. Sofa Sale now on at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Easy Living Furniture. Luxury furnishings. Affordable luxury.
Polestar 2. Get behind the wheel and experience electric performance at Polestar Dublin. Polestar 2. Available to order now for 242 delivery with prices starting from €42,995. Polestar 2. The way electric cars should be. Book your test drive today at polestar.com.
Pre-orders for the 242 models have begun at iMotors, and you won't want to miss these incredible offers from Nissan. Enjoy 3.99% finance across the entire Nissan range, including the SUV of the year, the Nissan X-Trail. Prefer electric? Get 0% finance on the Nissan Leaf, or save a whopping €10,000. Visit our showroom in Drumkeen or Malin today and take a test drive. These offers are limited, so hurry and take advantage now.
iMotors, fearless generation.
Now, 5 fishing organisations, Irish fishing organisations, have come together. There's 3 based in Killybegs, by the way, and we're going to speak to a rep of one of those. They've come together to call for change of representation at EU level. We're joined by Brendan Byrne, CEO of the Irish Fish Processors and Exporters Association. Brendan, good morning to you. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Greg.
Right, so it's not insignificant, is it, that really the industry, the representatives of that industry are coming together now and speaking with one united voice. It's really quite significant, I think.
It is very significant, and I suppose it speaks to the situation we're now facing, the challenges that the entire Irish fishing sector, from the smallest inshore vessel to the largest vessel offshore, from the fish retailer to the fish factories, we're all facing the greatest challenges of our time post-Brexit, also the historic unfairness of successive policies that have come from the EU that has led us to a juncture now that our sector is really under massive pressure. We're fearful of the future, but yet we're surrounded by the richest fishing grounds in all of Europe, fishing grounds that other countries can successfully derive a living from. So we're both fearful of the future, but we're also respectful of the fact that we have the greatest asset of all. And from that, we believe we can develop a future that will increase jobs and opportunity for our coastal and maritime communities.
But the solution to this is simple, is it not? Is that next time quotas are being divvied up, that Ireland gets its fair share, representing the industry in this country and its importance, and also the fact that these are our waters we're talking about. Yes, we're part of a union, but we have to be fairer. That's really what it comes down to. Maybe I'm simplifying it too much.
Well, in reality, it does come down to quotas, but historically, the various deals that set up the common fishery policies of 1983 and the relative stability keys that have locked in the shares that other countries have in our waters is going to be much more difficult in the medium term to unravel. But that is the ultimate aim, that we get greater fairness and greater opportunity in our own waters. We're minority shareholders in the waters that surround this island. We catch 15% of the fish, whereas our EU colleagues are allowed to catch 85%. That's grossly unfair, but there's a lot of historical unraveling of that. But where we are with the five fishing representative bodies is we have come together collaboratively. We have said that we will work constructively, proactively, with all parties, with the government and the department, in developing a strategy that will work both nationally and at European level. The reality is we are facing the challenges of our lifetime, and we need to come about the solutions to this in a much different way than what we have for the last 20 years, because the last 20 years have spelled nothing, only failure.
A thing too that beggars belief for me is that we're over here sort of battering away trying to get a fair share, and others have been given a share of these quotas and simply don't use them, yet they're if I'm correct in saying so, and they're just there, they're sitting there, right? We're unable to take more fish from our waters, and someone somewhere has negotiated a deal that obviously has given them more than they either use or want.
That is correct. The historical unfairness of the common fishery policy has, in some cases, some of our member states leave more fish uncaught than we're allowed to catch in the first instance in some species. But that is the reality of how unfair this policy is that was set up in 1983. It was never reformed in any meaningful way since then. It has allowed large member states in the fishing industry, such as the Dutch and the Belgian, the French and the Spanish, to develop at a time where we are constantly in decline. But we're now at a juncture where, unless we do a radical approach collaboratively involving the fishing industry, all of the fishing industry and the government of the day and our department, unless we coalesce quickly, within 2 years, our industry will be decimated. That is the challenge that we are facing. That is why...
But how do we achieve that, though, Brendan? You see, because I daren't think how long it is now, 10, 15, 20 years I've been doing interviews on this, and the messaging is often the same. Now, obviously, you would hope this is different because we're seeing these associations and organisations coming together, right? But the language seems familiar. It seems that we're getting a raw deal. We need more. We're on the brink. What can change this time to change the outlook for the industry?
Well, the greatest advantage we have now is that 3 of the 5 organisations that have come together collaboratively have new CEOs. There is new and fresh thinking. Secondly, post-Brexit, the reality has finally dawned in Ireland that for 20 to 30 years, we never had a pro-industry, pro-fishing, pro-sector policy from the successive governments that have been in office over that period. We also, thankfully, have changes within our Department of Fisheries and Marine. And finally, we have a department that is willing to develop the sector, is willing to fight for the sector, both nationally and European level.
Mm-hmm.
We are a sector that has suffered greatly from the lack of change within the organisation, so from lack of change within the department, and the total lack of change of successive governments in terms of policies that work. If you compare and contrast us to other EU states, be it the Netherlands, Denmark or Spain, they have policies that actually work. They go to the heart of Europe to fight for fishing. We're on the periphery, yes we are, but we have the asset that the others are developing and progressing from, and that is the availability of fish in abundance around our island. This isn't rocket science, but what it is a clarion call for cohesion and collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, divided, we will fail.
And I get that, right? So say that part's in place, and it's fantastic to see that. Is the reality not, though, you could arrange a meeting amongst all 5 CEOs with Minister Charlie McConalogue, and he could sit down in Killybegs and he could listen to everything that you say, and he says, I agree, and I'm going to go to Europe and I'm going to put up a very strong fight for the industry here. And then the CFP comes around again. We get the crumbs off the table. We might get some increases in one fish stock or other. And you know, nothing fundamentally has changed to the extent that it might actually save the industry. Do you get where I'm coming from? Like, so what in that process has to change, or possibly could change, that this amalgamation, this cooperation could actually yield results? Because it all eventually just filters through the one person, really.
It's more in-depth than that, although I accept the point you make. What I'm talking about in terms of deep collaboration is that the department, the industry, through the collaborative body here, and the minister are all of one mindset, all of one plan, and are working collaboratively. As we know, the European model is based on lobbying, it's based on the Parliament, it's based on the Commission and the national governments and the ministers and the departments. If we collaboratively work together, and this is unprecedented, it may sound illogical that we haven't gone to this place before, but this is the place we are now. And what we're offering, and what the government, I think, are open to, is that we all work together, because we have allowed our industry to go to such a point and such a juncture of failure that we have to radically reset how we engage with the Commission, with the Parliament, with DG Mara at technical level, which involves our department, at political level it involves our minister, and at lobbying level it involves us as industry, all of one mind and one plan.
But this would actually require also, though, and listen, fantastic, I'm behind you all the way. This would actually require, would it not, this plan to be effective, an effective reform of the common fisheries policy. So reforming a very significant policy that spans the entire EU and a couple of countries that aren't even in the EU. It's ambitious and it's bold, but that is what's required. Can it be achieved? And what I'm trying to get at here is, what level of commitment do you need from the government for this to work?
We need the same level of commitment from the government of the day and the department of the day as we ourselves in industry are given it, and that is full and complete commitment to saving and fighting for the Irish fishing industry. Whereas the common fishery policy reform is key and central, there will and there are other opportunities that present themselves in terms of fishing opportunities, in terms of quota, that are outside the common fishery policy. What we're advocating is that Ireland gets new and radical in its approach for fishing. And that means every opportunity that comes forward at EU level, we're on top of it. Every opportunity that comes forward, we're in there saying, hold on a second, you guys are benefiting from the waters around Ireland. It's time you heard and listened to Ireland.
Yeah, I think that argument would be strengthened, and this is no commentary on the person who's in that position at the moment, but fishing being recognised and a minister with specific responsibility for fishing. I think I put that to the head of the KFO before, and he didn't seem to think that was terribly significant. Maybe you can, it wasn't actually vital to this, but for me, I imagine if you send someone over there that's specific, has a specific role in a specific area, surely as part of this wider initiative, that sends maybe a stronger message to the EU. Are you of the mind that it doesn't matter if we have a specific minister for fisheries or not?
Well, every sector would want a minister of their own. Of course, it's natural for the Irish fishing industry to say, yes, we want a minister of our own. Whether that ever comes into fruition would be a matter for the Taoiseach of the day. So the reality is we have a Minister for Agriculture, Food and Fisheries at present. We're content to work with him in terms of this plan and in terms of other opportunities that will present themselves. If a future government in the future wants to put in a Minister for Fisheries, we will welcome that. But the reality is where we are, and where we are is that we need to engage more proactively at European level. That also involves looking at who our permanent representatives at European, at technical level are that are dealing with fisheries. If you compare us to other member states, our office in terms of how we engage at fishery levels is very small. It shouldn't be. We have the largest territorial fishing grounds in Europe. So therefore, we should have a very strong, robust, resilient team at the core of decision making at Europe. That's not the case now, and it hasn't been the case for the past 20 years. We're talking about key and fundamental things that are needed if a sector is to develop and progress. Europe is key and fundamental in development of fisheries. Okay. So therefore, we need to go to the very heart of it, and we need to be strong at the heart, and we need to be united at the centre of decision-making in Brussels.
Yeah, okay, so if I'm reading it correctly then, obviously what an MEP says or does, or particularly what a minister does, you're saying really that it's the ongoing everyday, every week meetings, the negotiations, the hard conversations that aren't necessarily political. That's really where we need to improve things, that we need to become a thorn in the side, and that the views of your groups and others, it's a shared view, sort of at civil servant level, really. Not when we talk about it, when all the decisions have been made.
We need to reset the entire engagement and dial tone that Ireland is sending into the Commission or into the Parliament or into technical level. There's so much more than just meetings in Brussels. The meetings behind the scenes, the meetings within the technical level is where decisions and bartering is made. And that's where I feel for the last 20 years we've been at our weakest. So this collaboration is a collaboration of industry, it's a collaboration with government and the department, but it's also a reality check that we need to get stronger in Europe. And our agenda is very simple. We're going to be proactive, we're going to be constructive, and we are very, very clear. The Irish fishing industry has a good and bright future because we have the raw product, we have the asset that can develop that. We need now to align industry, the political arm, the technical arm, in order to get to where we are, rather than the challenges that we have been facing for the last 10 years, but most particularly the challenges that we are experiencing post-Brexit.
And just one other thing, and maybe you know, and maybe you don't. I found it quite curious. That quotas were allocated to countries and went unused, and I was trying to find out sort of what fish we're talking about here. Do you know what I mean? What fish affect us? And there's an awful lot of species of fish, right? But I could only find data on 5 or 6 species of fish. Now, I'm not sure if that data is absent or I simply couldn't find it. But what it made me think is, do we actually know what's going on? Do we know what is being effectively wasted that we don't have access to? There doesn't seem to be, a full set of figures there that we could actually work on and say, no, we want this and we want that and we want the other. I could be as far out, but I just couldn't find that data.
Well, it's very difficult to get data of that nature readily available from the EU, but the Minister McConaughey set up a working committee on the reform of the CFP, and we obtained some data from Europe that showed 8 or 9 species of fish from monk to haddock to hake, that if the Irish fleet were allowed to catch, would help the resilience and help the profitability of the fleet. And yet these are left uncatched year in, year out by other countries. So what you have is a 40-year-old policy that has never been reformed, based on a track record between 1976 and 1983, when probably Ireland was at its weakest in terms of fishing, and whereby I think we've certainly missed the boat, and pardon the pun, when we set our own limits to quotas when we submitted our catching records to the EU. There's a lot of historical failure, but we're not looking back here. We're looking forward at a future whereby we can say that our industry will be resilient. It will have a future for our young fishermen and fisherwomen. And that is the plan. This is bold, it's new, and it's innovative. We need buy-in from the Minister of the Day. We need buy-in from the department, and we need a commitment that Ireland is going to put fishing front and centre, so that in 20 years' time, when you and I are still talking, we will have a robust industry that's employing 3 to 4 times what it currently is.
Thanks, Brendan. Take care of yourself.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
I've been surfing all morning at FlemingLTD.com to find out about Fleming doors, Fleming steel and Fleming coatings and their full range of products. So come surfing with me at FlemingLTD.com. Fleming, 91 48 234.
Millions flowing west in farm payment changes. For more in your Irish Farmer's Journal, here's Paul Mooney.
For the first time, we reveal how much your county is winning or losing from cap payment flattening. We look at the high-profile farmers who missed out in local elections. Larry Goodman's succession plans revealed. Strong demand driving sheep trade. Water quality report does not bode well for nitrates derogation. And we talk to family carers who feel abandoned by government.
All inside the Irish Farmer's Journal, on sale now.
Letterkenny Medics is Ireland's first multi-purpose private medical urgent care and aesthetics centre. Dr. Mohammed El Preya and Dr. Ripu Singh are offering daily appointments from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days per week. Our walk-in clinics offer cardiac screening, weight management, male and female health screening, minor injury, minor surgery, aesthetics and travel vaccinations. To book your appointment, go to letterkennymedics.ie or call 07492 02955. Letterkenny Medics. We listen if you want to talk.
Check out the new summer ranges now in stock at Watson Menswear, Letterkenny. Top casual brands include Mishmash, French Connection, Tommy Bow and Penguin. If you're going to a big event, great formal wear names include Rimazumo, Sixth Sense and White Label, with special packages available for wedding parties. Watson Menswear open 7 days a week on Main Street, Letterkenny, and at watsonmenswear.com.
If you're getting married, BizPrint can take care of all your printing needs. Not just invitations, but save-the-date cards, order of service booklets, table cards and so much more. See what's available at weddinginvites.ie or call BizPrint on 9177 955.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhenney's. Support a local Donegal business with McElhenney's. From fashion to home essentials, find everything you need for any occasion. Shop McElhenney's Ballybuffet for quality you can trust.
So rain will become widespread through the morning and for the afternoon. Some of it heavy. It'll become mostly dry in the evening. A breezy day though. Temperatures 13 to 16 degrees. Back with more after the news and obituary notices.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
The Mother and Baby Institution's payment scheme is now open for applications. This scheme provides financial payments and health supports to eligible people who spend time in mother and baby and county home institutions in Ireland. There's a straightforward application process in place to help everyone access the benefits that they are entitled to. To find out more, visit gov.ie/payment scheme or call the helpline at 01 522 9992, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Cool it this summer with the Curry's range of fridge freezers. Get the higher fridge freezer for only €849, save €130. Or save €50 on the LG 6040 fridge freezer for only €559. And don't forget, our experts will deliver and install your new appliance for half price. Shop in-store or online at currys.ie.
Imagine a dream wedding on a lake, all-day casual dining by a magical shore, fine dining or glorious afternoon tea surrounded by beautiful mountains, or a fabulous bar filled with music, laughter and song. Imagine no more. Harvey's Point, Loch Esk, Donegal 07497 22208 or harveyspoint.com. Close by, but a different world.
Boost your brain function with Remind supplements this May. Visit Healthwise Pharmacies for the innovative Life Meter test. In just 1 minute, measure your carotenoid levels from a simple fingertip scan. Understanding your diet can help you take charge of your brain health. Remind's blend of carotenoids and omega-3 fatty acids supports normal brain function. Make an appointment today at Ballyrain and Dunlow Healthwise Pharmacies. Take the first step towards a healthier brain with Remind.
Discover the magic of Crinnean and Og in Donegal on June 15th. Join us for a day of creativity and fun for children and young people 18 and under. Don't miss out on these fantastic, free family events, plus dedicated events for 14 to 18-year-olds. Visit waynefest.ie for more information.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. Donald Kavanagh at the news desk. Counting has resumed in the European Parliament elections with 9 seats still to be filled. No new MEPs have been elected since Tuesday. The Midlands North West count has restarted. The votes of Senator Niall Blaney are currently being distributed. Donegal TD Thomas Pringle says the government has no understanding of the experience of families with children with disabilities and is calling for more school-based summer provision and other measures. Addressing the Dáil during the debate on a Sinn Féin special education motion, Deputy Pringle urged the government to reverse a decision to cut summer provision capitation payments from €45 to €30 a week. Deputy Pringle said more school-based summer provision must be made available, and when September comes, children with special needs should have access to appropriate education in their own community.
A huge issue that is faced by families with children with disabilities. There is no understanding whatsoever on the part of the government of the experience of these families. Despite the fact that every disabled persons organisation has emphasised how important summer provision is, the summer months can be a difficult time for children with disabilities and their families. The break in routine, lack of structure and less social opportunities make the summer months seem long, and summer provision is a much needed outlet at this time. The fact that every family is not given as much needed and valued opportunity is not good enough.
The SDLP leader Colm Eastwood says the treatment of Bloody Sunday families seeking justice for the murder of their loved ones has been disgraceful. It comes after the family of William McKinney confirmed the PPS has failed to challenge anonymity for Soldier F, who is charged with the murder of 2 people in Derry, as well as 5 charges of attempted murder. With more, here's Quisha Connolly.
In a statement, the Foyle MP says the treatment of the Bloody Sunday families has been a disgrace for the past 50 years, and it remains a disgrace today. Once again, he says they've been forced to press the Public Prosecution Service to act in the public interest and to treat the individual accused of murdering their loved ones in the same way that other defendants are treated. Mr Eastwood says William McKinney's family are right to say the PPS should have made an approach to them about a decision not to challenge the anonymity of Soldier F. He adds the pretense that the anonymity order means anything is a sham after he himself named him in the House of Commons. Mr Eastwood concludes every one of the families and every person in Derry knows who he is.
Uisce Éireann says valve repair works may cause supply disruptions to Rathmullen and surrounding areas today. Works are scheduled to take place until 3 o'clock this afternoon. Uisce Éireann says it could be up to 4 hours after the estimated restoration time before supplies fully return. Aer Lingus says pay rises being sought by pilots are outrageous. There are fears flights could be grounded within weeks after members of the Irish Airline Pilots Association voted to strike. They want wage hikes of up to 24%. The Labour Court has recommended 9%. Donal Moriarty, the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Aer Lingus, says the demand is untenable.
They're looking for a €50,000 pay increase for senior pilots. That €50,000 increase is more than the total annual pay of 3,500 of our 5,500 employees. So aside from this proposed increase being untenable from a corporate perspective and for the future of our business, it's actually unconscionable.
The Irish Travel Agents Association, meanwhile, is urging both sides to reach a resolution. Its CEO is Claire Dunn.
Holiday makers, business travellers will be travelling. They've made plans
Some of them have made plans up to a year ago for their holidays, and they'll be completely disrupted. So we're calling on Aer Lingus and the pilots to try and get together and find a resolution other than a strike. Surely there must be a better way to resolve a dispute than to cause havoc for people's travel plans at the busiest time of the year.
Charities are finding it increasingly difficult to deliver services. The Wheel, which represents 35,000 charities, community organisations and social enterprises, says funding cuts during the recession have never been restored. Director of Advocacy and Research at The Wheel, Colette Bennett, says the government needs to start planning now for an increasing population with greater needs.
So we know we have a growing population. We're going to need to look at, and government needs to look at, how it provides for that population, how it builds its public services, how it plans for those things, how much money is going to be involved. And part of that is how sustainable the sector is in dealing with an older population, with a more diverse population, and how, you know, we can continue to provide the services that we have.
Weather forecast: rain becoming widespread this morning and into the afternoon. Some of that rain heavy. It'll become mostly dry by this evening. A breezy day with top temperatures of 13 to 16 degrees Celsius. And that's Highland Radio News. We're back with news again at 11 o'clock. Check all of today's news, of course, on our website, highlandradio.com. But for now, from the news team, have a very good morning.
The obituary notices for this Thursday morning, June 13th. The death has occurred of Noel O'Donnell, Belcruit, Kincasla. Noel's remains will be reposing in McGlynn's funeral home today from 2 p.m. and Rosary at 8 p.m. Tomorrow from 2 p.m. and Rosary at 6, with a private removal afterwards to his own home in Belcruit. Funeral Mass on Saturday at 11 a.m. in St Mary's Church, Kincasla, with interment afterwards in Cruitt Cemetery. The house will be private on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu, if desired, to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member, or Sean McGlynn, Funeral Director. The death has taken place of Michael McLaughlin, Ballyheeney, Mallinhead. Michael's remains are reposing at his home. Funeral from there on Saturday morning at 10:20, going to the Star of the Sea Church, Mallinhead, for Requiem Mass at 11, followed by burial in Lag Cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu, if desired, to Carndonagh Community Hospital, care of any family member or Kelly's Funeral Directors. The death has taken place of Annette Gormley, Carnagarv, Moville. Annette's remains will leave Eamon McLaughlin's funeral home, Station Road, Carndonagh, at 2 p.m. today, going to her home, where you are welcome to pay your respects from 3 p.m. onwards. Funeral from there at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday morning for 11 a.m. funeral mass in St Pius X Church, Moville, followed by burial in Ballybrack Graveyard. Funeral mass can be viewed on movilleparish.com. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu, if desired, to the Patients Comfort Fund, Nazareth House, Fawn, care of any family member or Eamon McLaughlin, Funeral Director. The death has occurred of Philomena McColgan, Lagacurry, Isle of Doe, Clonmany. Remains reposing at her late residence. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:15 a.m, going to St Mary's Church, Clonmany, for Requiem Mass at 11 a.m, with interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time, please, from 10 p.m. tonight. Family flowers only, please. Donations, if desired, to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member or McFeely Funeral Directors. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. The death has occurred of Nan Doherty, Dewish, Ballybuffet, reposing at her home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:20 a.m. for Requiem Mass in the Church of Mary Immaculate, Stranorlar at 11 a.m. Interment in Stranorlar Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. Family time from 10 p.m. until 11 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Donations in lieu of flowers, if so desired, to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death took place on May 26, 2020, of Connell McMenamin, Manhattan, New York, and formerly of High Road, Letterkenny. Mass for the repose of his soul will take place in St Neunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, which can be viewed live on Church Services TV. followed by interment of his ashes in the family plot in Cornwall Cemetery. The death has taken place of Patrick McCallion, Clagan, Culdaff. Patrick's remains are reposing at his home. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. for 11 a.m. funeral mass in St Mary's Church, Boken, followed by burial in the adjoining graveyard. Funeral mass can be viewed live on culdaffparish.com. Family time from 11 p.m. tonight and before the funeral tomorrow. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Chest, Heart and Stroke Unit, Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member or Eamon McLaughlin Funeral Director. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
McDonald's fries. You are the sun in my skies. You brighten my life. McDonald's fries. You taste of paradise, and my love I can't disguise. Oh, McDonald's fries.
Thanks for the home, Lisa. The fries you love, now love you back. Introducing McDonald's Surprise Fries. Thousands of tasty prizes to be won, including cash. Peel your fries on pack and play an app for a chance to win. 18 plus. ROI only. McDonald's app required. M&L fries only. And 2nd of July 2024. Rules apply.
The county's #1 talk show. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the programme. Coming up, we will be speaking to a young woman who is involved with OnlyFans. I'm sure if you haven't heard about it, you will. If you have any questions in relation to that, in terms of the lifestyle choices, I don't know. To be honest with you, it's going to be a learning curve for me. We'll make sure to listen. Or you can watch the show as well, by the way, on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, on our Facebook pages. Give us a like and a subscribe there. It really helps as well. So that's coming up and so much more besides. GEA Go are not streaming the Donegal versus Clare game in Castlebar at the weekend. Why can't Highland not live stream like the election coverage? Well, we would love to be able to do that. Unfortunately, it's a rights issue, and RTE and GEA Go have the rights to those games, and if they choose not to show them, no one else can show them. And I'll tell you, even simply standing in the grounds and doing a Facebook Live would get you into bother, let alone if we were to do it. Also, some more comments coming in. Charlie McConnell on RTE earlier, unaccountable, unfit to be a TD when he cannot even appear on his local radio station to talk on one of Donegal's main industries, fishing. It is regrettable. I wish it were different. I have no ill will or ill feeling and a good deal of respect for Minister McConnell, but that also means that I have to respect his decision that he doesn't want to speak to me on this programme. Hi Greg, to Mary T. Sweeney, election posters lying on the footpath at the Port Bridge in Letterkenny. What's going on, as somebody could slip and fall on them on this wet day? It's very important that also you help out the candidates, because a lot of them have put on their social medias, look, we've gone around, we've tried to find every one of them. If you see one of them, will you let us know? I did notice on the way to work this morning, some of Senator Blaney's are still up. Most of them seem to be down, but as I say, we have to help them too, and if we spot them, let them know. On to fishing. The boats are not coming back into this area because of the price of diesel. That's why they're opting to not land in Killybegs. Also on that issue, actually, I want to go to Calms. There's a lot of you texting in on Calms as well. I have 3 children under Calms in Buncrana. I have to say they've been amazing, really caring and understanding and great support, which is good news. And, you know, when we talk about, say, for instance, 70% of children in certain groups not getting the services that they require, it doesn't mean that the 30% are not getting very good treatment as well. It's just that, wouldn't it be lovely if we could get equal treatment for all, not just dependent on where you are or what team you're engaging in? Greg, we eventually got an appointment with CAMS and all they were interested in was medicating them. When I refused, that was it. I ended up with a credit union loan to get help privately. Thankfully, he lives today to tell the tale, but it's with no thanks to our government. That's an interesting point there as well. My daughter was refused CAMS, suicidal and self-harming. Thankfully, she got help from Jigsaw, but there is a waiting list there as well. Another, very often children won't take the medication that they've been prescribed by doctors for their mental health. They then self-medicate with drugs and alcohol and weed. I've seen children as young as 15 smoking weed to numb the pain. Yeah, indeed. And I don't think medicating a child should be the first protocol, though, either. Maybe they're saying, I just want someone to talk to me. I want to talk this through. I want someone to help me. I don't want to just be given a medication. And a lot of these medications, too, they are effective, but they can affect a child's ability to concentrate or to study. So it's not always the best option either. But I take your wider point, self-medication. It's not just young people do it. Adults can do that, too. In relation to mental health, says another listener, I called an emergency number and got an answering machine. That should never happen. Then I called her GP and he said she's attention seeking, which is very, very unfortunate. 2 days later, she did attempt to take her life. There simply is no help out there for families in need of mental health support. I think in terms of general practice, things have improved an awful lot. I do remember going back in the day, in terms of general practitioner, often a person presenting could be told to pull themselves together, and that maybe they were too focused on the physical side of things. As I say, thankfully things have improved, but a GP to conclude that a child is attention seeking is very worrying. But hopefully that is an isolated incident. 086 60 25,000 if you want to continue that conversation. We got this email in. We posted it on our social media as well. It's got a lot of traction. And we just thought it important to mention on the radio as well. Hi, I hope you're well. If it's okay, could you please give a mention to a good Samaritan who went out of his way to help on a sad occasion? To explain, sadly, can I just say, Caroline, it's okay to use the names, the people's names in this. Okay, just wanted to double check. And I'll start from the beginning. To explain, sadly, my lovely mammy, Helen Crawford, died in the last few weeks, and her funeral took place on Monday, May 27th in St. Eunan's Church in Raphoe. A lot of people travelled to the funeral from afar, including many of my colleagues from Dublin City University. I was so touched when the department I lead at DCU turned up at the funeral, having hired a minibus to bring them from Dublin to attend the funeral. I would later discover that things didn't go quite to plan on the journey from Dublin, as the minibus broke down on the A5 outside Sion Mills near the Ulster American Folk Park. We all know this is one of the most dangerous roads in Ireland. To make matters worse, they were stopped on a section with no hard shoulder and huge traffic volumes. They were stranded, and the Dublin bus driver was at a loss to know what to do. Lucky for them, Donegal private bus operator Padda O'Brien of Terrific Coaches came upon the scene. Padda could see they were stopped in a very dangerous spot, so we pulled up to see if he could help. Upon hearing they were trying to get to a funeral in Raphoe and were going to be late, he contacted a few people he knew locally to see if he could get another bus to take them. When that failed, he just said to himself, right, everyone on board my bus, I'll take you there myself, and he did. Despite having his own passengers and being under time pressure, he got everyone to the church. So it would be great, if possible, to give him a shout out and let him know that the family of the late Helen Crawford are eternally grateful to him for his kindness. It's not an everyday occurrence and was brilliant. Another brilliant example of Donegal people showing great kindness and compassion. That comes in from Celine. So what a wonderful, wonderful story. Padda O'Brien of Terrific Coaches. He just happened upon a group of people travelling from Dublin to a funeral in Raphoe, tried to sort out an alternative bus locally. That didn't work. So he said, right, hop on the bus. And he made sure everyone was able to get to that funeral. And it's clear, listening to Celine too, it was so important for her friends and colleagues from Dublin to be able to attend her lovely mammy Helen Crawford's funeral. We all know how tough a bereavement is, but what a lovely story to have as part of the memories moving forward. And a great honour to your mum and a great honour to you, Celine. They must hold you in incredible high regard. Okay, fair play. Padda O'Brien, Terrific Coaches, and a terrific name too, if you don't mind me saying so, Padda.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Thursday the 13th of June, Jackpot Day. You're playing for the jackpot prize of €11,800 on the pink sheet. The reference number is S19, it's game number 24. The jackpot number is 47. This number can come out in any position from the next 10 numbers drawn. And now, here are your daily numbers. 7, 32, 79, 16, 24, 82, 23, 30, 88, And finally, 58. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland bingo information at highlandradio.com.
On Business Matters this week, my guest is musician Zara Montgomery, who'll be telling me about the one-stop shop wedding and corporate events band Snapshot Live. So join me, Chris Ashmore, for Business Matters after the 6 o'clock news on Sunday.
Business Matters on Highland Radio is brought to you by Local Enterprise Office Donegal. If you have an idea to start or grow your business within Donegal, contact the Local Enterprise Office team to find out more about the supports available for businesses. See localenterprise.ie/Donegal.
Sit back, relax and sink into the comfort of a new sofa at Easy Living Furniture Sofa Sale. Luxurious designs, unbeatable prices and endless comfort await you. Sofa Sale now on at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Easy Living Furniture. Luxury furnishings, affordable luxury.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Greg, the destruction of the mummified relics in Dublin is absolutely disgusting. Yeah, indeed, that's a story I didn't fully read, but the headlines definitely make for difficult reading. Mona, could you please wish the Finn Valley Community Health Forum Committee all the best with their health and well-being event tonight in the Finn Valley Centre at 7 to 9. Lots of love from Jude. Mary Lou did say that the referendums would be rerun. I sat and listened to her saying it. She lost my vote that night. Thanks for that, by the way. Lots of election posters still up, says another caller. Listen, pass on the details to us and we can pass them on to the candidates. How's about that? If you are seeing any election posters up or lying about, let us know and we'll pass those details on to the relevant candidates. Also, David James' show is coming live from Glen this afternoon at Kernan's, formerly Mickey Joe's. Mickey Joe's Butchers is still there, of course, but the Kernan's shop being opened officially today, launched today, I believe, and David James is there, and my son's there as well, working, believe it or not, which is a great thing about sometimes the local stuff. Right, now we are going to speak to our next guest, who is Megan O'Neill. She is in the top 1% in the world of OnlyFans creators. She's an influencer, a boxer, and a mum, and now a guest on the 9 till noon show. Hiya, Megan.
Hello, how are you?
I think that really just rounds off your career perfectly now.
It doesn't. I mean, there's a little bit more in there, but I think, yeah, you've rounded it up perfectly.
Come here, it's lovely to speak to you, Megan, from County Antrim. You're also a model, of course. You're a stay-at-home mum, a dancer, a mechanic, a gym owner, and an executive in the competitive market of PR. Are you also a porn star, or how do you describe an adult star? Because it's your own business, really, right? So it's up to you how you define it. And I want to make sure I'm using your words and not the words just of an article someone else wrote about you, if that makes sense.
Well, I would call myself a porn star, but obviously when I am on the likes of TV and radio, I like to say OnlyFans creator.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more PG. You can say that online. Once you say the word porn star, everybody's like, whoa, stop this now. So yeah, I would call myself a porn star.
Yeah, so it's a title you're comfortable with. You're in control of that. It's what you have to say, and
Yeah.
that's fine. So, talk to me about how you got into modelling, because you were modelling at an early age, weren't you? And it's like talk to us about the type of modelling you were doing from your mid-teens onwards.
So when I turned 15, I always wanted to be a model. I used to watch, Tyra Banks on the TV, and I just thought this was amazing. But being 5'2", the catwalk was never something that I could ever go down. So I started modelling. I was with an agency very early on, and then I went on with myself. I was freelance. So I was freelance right from I was 15 right up until I left the industry when I had my kids at 23. So when I turned 18, I was doing a little bit of commercial work. And when I turned 18, I went straight to glamour modelling.
And how does that work? Do you kind of sort of seek that out, or does someone see some of your work and they pretty much wait until you turn 18 and then go, look, Megan, would you be interested in this type of work too?
I think when you're in the industry, you meet a lot of different characters along the way. So you meet kind of everybody that you're gonna maybe work with. You're not when you go into an industry, you learn everything about it. You know that there is the glamour, there is the, fashion, there is the catalogs, there's all this sort of thing. So you get to pick yourself. Nobody approached me. I decided myself when I turned 18, this is what I wanted to do. I was always exhibitionist. So I always loved showing myself, and it was this art form, and there was never any shame in it when it came to, showing my body off and stuff. So when I turned 18, I was like, yeah, this feels right. I'm gonna do it. But then I had the kids when I turned 23, and I left the industry altogether.
So early doors, right? It's up to you. You can be proud of your body. You don't mind showing off your boobs or whatever, right? And you can deal with that and you're in control. But then there's external forces, okay? So in terms of family or friends or people that you might meet in the street, like what kind of reaction did you get? And maybe that gave you a buzz, or maybe you felt you were put down. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I often wonder, what it feels like, from the external forces.
It is a lot. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's been an easy ride. Being from a very small town in the north of Antrim, people don't like change. People don't like different, especially here in Ireland. Everything's very much, shameful. Sex is shameful, and we're all from a Christian background, well, the majority of us anyway. So for me to turn to glamour modelling at the very start, my family were just, this was outrageous, how could she do this sort of thing? But as I grew and I developed as a person, and I started my degree and I was studying, people were kind of, I don't drink, I've never done drugs, I'm completely, other than having ADHD, which I was diagnosed with last year, I'm completely stable. So I think that this idea of she's losing her mind, when I started this whole sort of, ball rolling, that was my family's worry anyway, and my friends. But when they've seen me grow up and have kids, they've kind of said, you know what, she's actually quite sensible and stable. Yes, this is her career, but we can sort of identify that that's just her career, and she's actually this sane, stable, normal human being at the same time. But the bullying was catastrophic. No matter what I did from a very young age, I was always different. Looking back now, I can see that I was on a spectrum and I had ADHD, and I thought differently, I acted differently. I was never bad. Top of the class in school, very academic. I was in the grammar stream. I was studying to be a doctor. Then the GCSEs hit, and my brother was a drug addict at the time. And I kind of started to rebel, because obviously I was prepubescent. I had early trauma, in life, and I decided that I just started to rebel as any 15-year-old would, and I went down the modelling route. So at the start, it probably was a little bit of rebellion, but then I loved it, and it didn't really matter what people said. It didn't deter me. The bullying, the online bullying, it still goes to this day. There's threads online all about me. I get hate consistently every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I have had death threats. I've had everything.
The thing is, and it's really quite sad, is that there is quite a sizable, it seems, proportion of the population that feels that if you go down the career path that you have, because you share so much of yourself, let me put it like that there, that means that you are open to absolutely everything. So in other words, if you, as some might see, overshare, that means then that you are a legitimate target for anything that they have to say. But you are, and you know what? Very sadly, we saw it too, with the likes of Love Island and shows like that there, that if you put yourself out there, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to take anything that everyone feels they're able to give you.
Well, you see, I would look at that and I would say that the whole thing is boundaries and consent. And whilst people will tell me, the people will try and gaslight me and say, because you've done this, you deserve this. And it's like, no, I've never done anything to you personally, so therefore I'm not going to accept your criticism. I don't put myself out there to be criticised. If I'm going to be criticised, the nature of it is, I tell all the girls and the fellas that want to join, I'm like, you are going to be criticised. Doesn't make it right. Absolutely not. People will always say, well, you deserve to have this said to you. Well, the onus isn't on me. The onus is on you not to be a bully and not to be an online bully and a critique. And, if I haven't done something to you personally and you present to me with anger or distaste for what I'm doing, that's fine, but it's not personal to me. That's your issue, not my issue.
So going back 12 or 14 years ago, when you first got into the glamour side of modelling,
Oh, now you're giving away my age. Stop that.
Yeah, your age is here in front of me. Hey, Megan, and do you know what? For some, it's probably an advantage, right? But was it lads mags and stuff? Because the world has changed so drastically now. And we'll get on to OnlyFans and how you sort of are in control of that more now, rather than sort of having agents or people that might try and exploit you, what have you. But in the early times of your career, was it the lads mags? I'm trying to think back how much online stuff was there. I don't think it certainly wasn't monetarised the way it is now.
No, I mean, there was no sort of online things back then. There was websites and stuff, but it was lads mags. It was all magazines. It was editorial work. It was physically in front of you. It was not online. It wasn't on the phone. I mean, it was Bebo back in those days, so there wasn't really much social media either, other than obviously Bebo. I think Facebook had maybe just started. I can't even remember. It was that long ago. So yeah, it was all magazines, all editorial, all physical prints.
And what was going on in your head in the early 20s when you're modelling? And I know that you had at least one of your children or one child at this time, but you're modelling, you're dancing, right? I could see them living in the same space, right? But then to become a mechanic's apprentice.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to think, right, there's a gap in my resume here. I think I might become a mechanic. How does that fit in?
I was always mad into cars growing up. You know, I was what they would have called a tomboy growing up. I played football. I had these. The thing with me is that it's always been very beautiful that my personality is very contradictory of each other. You know, on one hand, I'm this model and dancer, and then the other hand, I'm a mechanic working with oil and a pink boiler suit all day. But I think that's the beautiful thing about how I've become this sort of person, that you can't label me, and you can't put me into a box. This is my thing. But with the mechanicking, I've always loved cars, and I decided I want to learn more about cars. Obviously, I didn't know then that I was on the spectrum. Now I know, and it makes sense. I wanted to know everything. Obviously, I hyper focus with ADHD, so I want to know everything about cars. If I become interested in something, I'll obsess over it until I understand all the workings of it. And I was apprentice mechanic for a year, but I left because obviously the money just didn't pay me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
I think it was like $2.60 an hour.
So in my word, so in terms of then your modelling career, did it explode? Is it OnlyFans and that platform that sort of has been the game changer for you?
Back before I had the kids, you know, I had a bit of a name, and I was coming up in the industry. Then obviously fell pregnant, so I decided to come away. And you know what? I decided, I talk about this openly in podcasts, I did the right thing by society. I became the mum. I stayed at home. You know, I looked into child development. I brought my kids up the way that I believed was right. But there just was something was not right within me. I just wasn't myself anymore. I completely lost myself. And it was a couple of years ago I decided, you know, I had my own gym. I opened my own female-only gym. I'm a powerlifter, champion powerlifter. I was doing all these things, and I had all the success, but just still I was missing. I would look back to my life and I would go, I loved doing that. That's where I felt mostly
And
me.
you know, in a way, that kind of, I presume, also validated your decisions as a 15 and 18-year-old. You know, I mean, we all kind of know ourselves. There might have been times you look back and said, well, did I make those decisions because this happened in my life, or I was in that space at the time? But then as a mum heading in towards your late 20s, did it sort of validate and you go, you know what, actually, Megan knew what she wanted when she was 15 and 18, because here I am now. I'm a mum. I've had all this experience, and I know that there's a gap in my life because I'm missing this.
Yeah, well, I've always, you know, I always laugh and I call myself very witchy. I'm very witchy and spiritual. And in my gut and my gut instinct, I always knew what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. But I listened to society. I listened to the people around me that wanted to keep me safe and comfortable. My family, my parents, my friends, they all kept me in and kept me caged. And it grew to a level of resentment for them all, because I was going, I haven't been who I've wanted to be. So my message is always very clear to people. I talk about it all the time on social media. Be authentic. Authenticity is everything. When you start to be exactly who you're meant to be, no matter what the people say, everything will come to your life that's meant to be in your life. So I always knew who I was meant to be, and I just went back to myself.
I've spoken to a lot of adults who have got a what might be seen as a late ADHD diagnosis, and this is outside of your career choices. A lot of things begin to make sense for them. and they just wish, my God, if I'd have known this at such and such an age. As I say, separate to your professional career. Is that the same story for you?
Big time. You know, I always felt different. I always felt, you know, I was very, very academic, and I was very smart. You know, I was in the grammar stream, but there just were things that just didn't make sense to me. Simple things that other people could grasp. And I was going, you know, why can I not understand that? It's not like I'm stupid. It's not like I'm not bright. As I got older, you know, the sort of the ways that I would rebel and the ways that I would look for attention, you know, was very, I understood everything in my life then made sense. It kind of gave me, you know, I would have meltdowns and stuff. When I had the kids, that kind of brought my ADHD to the forefront. You know, I was overstimulated all the time. You know, I had 2 kids under 2. It was intense. You know, I was a single parent from the very start. It was extremely intense. And I give myself, when I got the diagnosis, I give myself a lot of grace. It allowed me to then go, do you know what? There's nothing wrong with you. You know, doctors would try and diagnose me with things, and I would say, no, I don't think I'm this, and I don't think I'm that. You know, I don't agree with the psychiatric model of diagnosing people with, you know, personality disorders and stuff. My degree is in philosophy and psychology, so I don't agree with that model. But for me, it kind of opened my eyes, and I went, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have ADHD. My brain does just work differently. So it allowed me to give myself grace, and I never have meltdowns anymore. I know my triggers now, and I step away before it gets to that point.
Right. So when did you when you returned to the industry, was it straight into the OnlyFans?
I went straight to OnlyFans. I sat with myself at a meditation session, and I said, what would you do? And I said to myself, I would be a porn star. If I didn't have to weigh the weight of the world's opinions, what would I do? And straight away, I would be a porn star. It came back to this and came back to this. And I knew when I was 18, I wanted to be a porn star, but obviously society, I stayed away from it. But I always knew myself what I wanted to do. And I just said, F it, I'm going to do it. And I just went on to OnlyFans, made an account, got verified. Within 10 days, I shot straight up to the top 2% of the world. And I've stayed at the top 1%.
I suppose without divulging the content, given the time, what do you think the secret to your success was? What were you doing different, do you think, to the other 99%? Like, do you use your Irishness, your accent, your sort of, you know, that might appeal to some people. I don't know, maybe your background coming from a more rural area. I don't know. What has been the...
I think it was coming from a very small place in Ireland that kind of shot me to stardom, because it was scandalous and it was out there. You know, I always say I am different, and I always will have this appeal to be the best in what I do. But if I was in England, would I have shot to the same stardom? Probably not. But because I'm here in Ireland, and especially Northern Ireland, people were just, oh my, this was scandalous. So I think that's what helped me shoot up there, as I was kind of the only one that I know of doing what I do. And I was very ballsy and very out there and very, this is me and I'm proud of who I am. And it kind of got people going, what the hell? What is going on here? So that's what helped.
It's inevitable that some of your subscribers or friends or neighbours, either curiosity for whatever it might be, I'm not sure if you know or you don't know, but if you're heading out for a carton of milk and you've just posted your latest content, right? Like,
they have seen my innards.
Yes. Yeah, but my point is like, it doesn't matter. I suppose maybe the first time that would have been put to you, it's like, it's all subs. It doesn't matter, does it?
It does not matter to me. With me, there is no shame. Like, I have no shame around sex. Like, we've all had sex. We're here because of sex. It is our life force. It's such a potent energy form. So, like, I'm not going to shy away from it. I do what I do, and I'm not shy about it. I don't care if people have seen it. I'm very proud of it. And listen, it's all money at the end of the day. It gets me to where I need to be.
And just in terms of the future, Megan, because there's lots of other stuff you're interested in, of course. But I'm just thinking, and I'm loath to ask any personal questions, but I know you're quite open, and you can just deflect this one if you're not interested in answering it. But I mean, obviously, everything we've talked about now is about you, right? Your personal responsibility, your place in the world, how things affect you, how you can how you can cope with it. But now it's clear from what you've said so far that your children are beginning to get a little bit older, okay? And you can't insulate them or protect them or have them think exactly the way you think. How do you protect them, or do you think that will form future decision making for you in terms of for continuing in the career? It's just one thing I'd be curious of, but if it's too personal, please just bat it away,
listen,
Megan.
It's fine. I always get the question about my kids, and it's very simple. You know, yes, I do what I do. My career does not define me. my kids grew up in a very sex positive household. There is zero shame. So any shame that's sort of going to be put onto them, it's going to be from other people. Yes, I can only protect them to a certain point, but again, I am a very protective, very in tune, intuitive mother. You know, anybody that knows me and knows my kids, I keep them completely off social media. I don't talk about them. Everybody knows they're there. But everybody knows that I'm a very good mum. You know, I've had all sorts. I've had the social services phoned. I've had the police come out, and it's laughable because everybody that knows me knows that you're not going to come for my kids. You know, I'm a boxer now. You'll not come for my kids.
Yeah, and I hope you know I wasn't questioning that because it's not my right.
No, listen, I get it all the time.
It's just I actually wasn't really. My question was nothing to do with you being a good mom or not. I've no doubt about that, right? It's just in terms of, do you say, right, you know, they're heading to school. It would be a personal choice, not the intervention of any external bodies. But anyway, you've answered that. You talked about boxing, and boxing does have its knockers, but it's one of my favourite sports, right? I'm gonna admit that. But you had your first fight, right? And how did that go for you? It was early doors, not much training, mismatched opponent, but you got in there anyway.
Yeah, so I got this fight announced a few weeks back in maybe April, so I hadn't been training, and I knew that I wanted to go into boxing and stuff, and I hadn't been training. You know, I was working the full month of March, and I got told that I would have this opponent, but they were going to try and get me the right size of opponent. Now, I'm only 50 kilo. This girl was 63 kilo. So I was like, right, okay. I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know that this was mental, this was mad. I was just like, yeah, no problem. So I took it on. I took the fight on, and it got announced. And then whenever I met with my team, they were kind of like, what have you done? This girl, like, this is crazy. This isn't done in boxing. Like, even a couple of pound is a big difference in boxing. Like, this is just unheard of. And I was like, well, I've said it now. Like, I've fought all my life. You know, I grew up very tough. So I was like, I'm going to do it. So, I mean, the build up to it was amazing. I really, really scared her, regardless of her height and her weight. You know, she was petrified getting into that ring with me because I'm quite scary and intimidating.
Might be that eye on your neck. I don't know. And come here. So, do you see a future? I mean, obviously, I'm not sure the setting of that fight, but presumably, Megan, you'd see yourself as a good match for the influencer boxing. You know, get on one of the KSI cards or on that platform.
So I was main event. It was my first fight, and I was main event. And we went in, and I won the first round. I won the first round by 2 rounds. You know, I was up 2 rounds. And the second round we went in, and I didn't really understand the count. So I don't know anything about boxing. So when he gave me my 8 count, you know, I kind of nodded to go. But he called the fight, and I was raging because I was like, what's happening? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we stopped. You know, I was ready to go. So I gave away the fight. Listen, it was fine.
I love it. That's the first boxer I've interviewed, and they said the reason they lost is because they hadn't checked the rules first. But hey, come here, look.
Even the rules were going on. I was doing my medicals, didn't listen to it. I didn't know anything about boxing getting into this. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna jump in the ring. So I lost the fight, unfortunately. But listen, she was 2 stone heavier. So, like, I held my own. I had no marks. She left with a black eye. I was definitely the better boxer. I'm in talks in my next fight. Misfits is the way I'm going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not the last you've heard of me in boxing.
All right, okay. Listen, Megan, it's been nice speaking to you. Thanks very much indeed. Continued success with whatever you choose to do. You know yourself, some people are going to look on and go, it's disgusting and all that, and others going to go, live and let live. And the truth lies somewhere in between, I presume. Okay, thank you so very much, Megan. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. That's Megan O'Neill. She's in the top 1% in the entire world of OnlyFans creators. That's adult stuff, right? So she films her own adult stuff and what have you. I don't need to go into the details, but look, it's not a voice you often hear, and I can't do it off the top of my head. Caroline, you have to write that out for me. This is the 3rd week in a row where but I'll back announce it. How's that after this break? All right, we'll be back with more on the show after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Did you know Cool Kids Sligo have the biggest range of baby equipment in the Northwest with 25 years of baby expertise? Cool Kids Sligo take deposits on your baby bundle. Visit us in store at Cool Kids Sligo or shop online at babyaccessories.ie for free nationwide delivery. Make Cool Kids Sligo your #1 destination for all things baby.
Welcome to Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms in Donegal Town. Discover affordable luxury with our bespoke fitted furniture solutions. With almost 30 years of serving Ireland and the Northwest, we're your trusted experts. Visit us Monday to Thursday 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. with late night openings Fridays until 7. Book your free consultation today on 074 9725 822 or visit cherrymore.ie. Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms, where affordability and luxury combine.
Revolutionise your style at Evolve Clothing Letterkenny Retail Park. Open 7 days, 2 floors of menswear featuring your favourite brands. Shop in store or online at evolveclothing.com. Your ultimate menswear superstore.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring 70% off sale. Get up to 70% off on all your purchases. Up to 70% off all tiles, all wood flooring, all bathware. Everything's reduced in store. The 70% off sale at Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring. Stores nationwide. Sale extended until Sunday.
House Pride Super Summer Sale is now on. There's over £5 million of warehouse stock ready for immediate delivery, with an extra 15% of everything in store and online. We won't be beaten on price. Shop in store today at our flagship store, Abercorn Square, Strabane, or House Pride Oma. Thinking of changing your floors? Why not see what Florid Letterkenny has to offer? Florid have a large selection of solid, semi-solid and laminate click vinyl wood flooring, together with a fantastic choice of parquet, herringbone flooring, all at incredible value. Don't delay. Call Florid today on 087 161 7008.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Whether you're on your way to work or the shops, how you get there can make a difference for all of us. By choosing public transport whenever you can, you're helping reduce Ireland's transport emissions. Last year, people around Ireland took a record number of over 300 million journeys by bus or train. And this year, to help more of you on your way, almost €1 billion has been dedicated to creating greener, better public transport. Because wherever you're going, your journey counts. Visit gov.ie/your journey counts. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Home improvements are well worth making, especially when they help build a more sustainable future for us all. With the Generation Green Home Upgrade from SSE Airtricity, you can enjoy a more energy-efficient home with solutions tailored to your budget. And now home upgrades are easier to finance. You can access new low-cost government-backed loans as well as the existing SEAI grants. And we're here to help. Make an improvement that will make a real difference at ssceairtricity.com/home upgrade. Registered with the SEAI for home energy upgrades. Grants offered are provided by the Government of Ireland through the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. Terms and conditions apply to the home energy upgrade loan.
Happy Father's Day.
This Father's Day, choose Dior, Paco Rabanne, Yves Saint Laurent, Jimmy Choo, Lacoste. Choose McGee's Chemist, Main Street, Letterkenny. Great gifts for great dads. Click mcgees.ie.
We love you, Dad. Alexander Hamilton.
Coming this year to Dublin for the very first time. 71 shows completely sold out. Hamilton at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. Experience the revolutionary musical that's taken the world by storm. Witness history come alive with electrifying performances and unforgettable music with a modern twist. Book your place now on the outlet at highlandradio.com or call us on 074 91 25000.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhenney's. With over 50 years of serving the community in Donegal, McElhenney's is proud to be part of every moment, big and small. Support local, shop McElhenney's Ballybuffet.
OK, it's not very favourable. Rain becoming widespread through the morning and for this afternoon. Some of it will be heavy. It'll become mostly dry in the evening. A breezy day today with temperatures of 13 to 16 degrees. We're talking history now with Dr. Joe Kelly. Imagine why, Dr. Joe? How are you keeping?
Imagine why good Greg is locked. Good morning to yourself, Greg, and all in Highland Radio.
Right, we are going to be speaking about the history of railways in Donegal. It's kind of heartbreaking, you know. I posted a map on my social media of this country with no railways, and then how it spread, and it spread into the west, and it spread into the northwest, and it spread into Inishowen, and then it starts to retreat again. And it's heartbreaking, isn't it? This infrastructure we had in place, and now it's all but lost to the northwest.
Yeah, and look, I often say to you, done as in Done in Donegal, are we done? Are we the orphaned child of the 26 counties? Are we a phantom limb? We can talk about all those things. And look, we've just after having an election there, the county council election, which is the nation's democracy, a beautiful, wonderful thing. And just maybe take the chance to congratulate yourself, Greg, and Highland Radio. You talked about maybe the rail service it could provide to Donegal. Well, what you provide, not just for Donegal, but for the Donegal diaspora in Ireland and throughout the whole world. It's amazing. And just to congratulate you on that there, it's a very, very important thing. And you brought democracy right to people's homes. And we exercised our votes, but you give us the chance, the opportunity, and an unbelievable service. So congratulate to yourself. You were a brilliant anchorman. I really enjoyed it. And to everybody in your team, well done.
Just in relation to that, I think democracy is incredibly important, and I also think access to it is incredibly important. And this is not blowing smoke or anything or self-praise. I'm not interested in talking about it. It's an opportunity to explain to the listeners what the philosophy was. I started live streaming this show on the internet. Primarily, it's because I was contacted by someone who couldn't listen, couldn't hear, and YouTube and Facebook offer subtitles, and they're able to engage with everything that's happening in the Northwest through the medium of radio, but not only visual, but actually be able to read what was happening. So that person, and I presume hopefully it's reached others people, they were able to be as included in what's happening in their own area as everybody else. So that was the initial motivation for it. But the motivation for what we did on Saturday was for the people who can't get into count centres, or as you say, who from outside it, or hear it but don't see the buzz or whatever, as well as the audio. The radio's the absolute 99% of it, don't get me wrong, but it was to afford people also the opportunity who are housebound, who can't get out, or who feel disenfranchised, to be able to, on their telly or on their phone, to actually watch it. So if something happened in Buncrana, they could see that. If something happened in Donegal town, they could see it. And I wanted as many people as possible to be able to feel as part of that, with the hope that maybe, and it's probably a long shot, with the hope that maybe at the general election or in 5 years' time, another 10% might be inclined to get involved in it because they feel more part of the process or understand it more. And that was it. Now, the praise and all is nice. I'm not comfortable with praise or what have you, but that was the motivation. But now, whether anything comes from it and it comes to pass, that remains to be seen. But that's why it was done the way it was done.
Well, we all have a constitutional duty. Article 9.3 of our constitution: fidelity to the nation and loyalty to the state is a fundamental duty of every citizen. And what you did in Highland Radio is you allowed people to realise that responsibility. And as you say, please God, people will become more engaged and realise that, particularly the county council, it's the nation's democracy. The people say, and we need to really realise how lucky we are as a nation that we are afforded this opportunity, and that we should exercise at all times our political mandate. And on that, just we're talking about history, Donegal County Council has the privilege of being the first county council in the history of Ireland to nominate a presidential candidate. You see, Article 12.4.22 states that councillors, and this is a privilege that councillors have, that they can nominate presidential candidates. So every one of the councillors are elected not only mandated to serve the people of the county, but also they have the privilege to nominate a presidential candidate should they wish. And Donegal was the first county council ever to exercise that mandate. In fact, it was my father, the late Paddy Kelly, who was the first county councillor ever in Ireland to exercise that mandate by proposing Dana. And he was supported by Councillor Maureen Doohan. She was the first female mayor of Donegal, a Fine Gael councillor, and by Sean Maloney. He was Labour, I think, in Letterkenny. She got cross-party support, And it was just a wonderful action of democracy again. And while people may not have agreed one way or the other with her, they were giving her the mandate and the right. So again, us, the people, we vote for our councillors, and our councillors then have that wonderful privilege that they can nominate, should they wish, someone for presidential elections. And Donegal County Council historically was the first county to ever exercise that privilege. And again, that's the wonders and beauty of democracy. We're very, very lucky that we have a healthy democracy in that sense, and that people, it's brought right back to our own doorsteps. And you in Highland have played a very, very significant and important part in our democracy. And thank you. It's not maybe on me to say that, but from a person that loves politics, I just can't appreciate enough and say thank you enough to Highland Radio and your team.
Well, that's far too nice. Also, too, you talk about democracy, and you know what we might do? We might take the news and then come back if that's okay, because we're going to talk about the railways.
Excuse the pun, but we need to get back on track.
Yes, the chance would be a fine thing. But you talk about how important a council is, right? So you could say arguably, and I would say I wouldn't argue it, but the defective concrete is the biggest issue in the county at the moment. And then the public people were so moved by that they got together and they organised and they put candidates up. So in terms of the biggest issue that's facing this county at the moment, the democratic process means now we have 4 people directly affected by that who are in the council representing those people. Out of 37, 4 is a considerable percentage, about 5 or 6 or 7%. I mean, that is democracy in action, isn't it? It's people stood on an issue and other issues. They were voted in, and now the makeup of that council for the next 5 years has a significant percentage of people representing all of those people affected by this issue. I mean, if that's not democracy, I'm not quite sure what is.
Yeah, it is that true, but maybe, and it's wonderful to see that, and it's not just the Micah candidates, and I congratulate them on their election, but there were other candidates, independent candidates, people that, maybe 2 months ago weren't thinking of politics and now they're councillors. It's wonderful to see democracy alive like that, and see the councillors are the bread and butter people of our communities, and we should be ever so grateful for them, irrespective of their politics, irrespective of their parties. They're the people that deal with the real issues in our communities, the tar, the street lights, the planning applications, the bread and butter issues. And hopefully, as you say, that mention the Micah, that the Donegal County Council now have a mandate as a joint council to say to the government, look, this is an issue for us. There are people suffering in this county. There are people in homes that shouldn't be in the homes that they're in with the way the mic is. And hopefully, but it's going to take time, hopefully this will push on a little bit further, the resolutions, and hopefully people will get a little bit more comfort and a little bit more ease. But we have a serious problem with Micah, and it's not even the physical building problem we have. I would be very concerned about the mental stress that this is putting on families, on mothers and fathers and children. And we can't measure that. And maybe that is evident in the vote, that people went out and voted emotionally, that these were people that were going to articulate for them. So yeah, you're quite correct about that there. But at the end of the day, they have to also deal with the other bread and butter issues, and I'm sure that they will do that, and they'll grow into that. And hopefully the whole council, and if you listen to the councillors when they were elected, they realise that they were elected for all the people, irrespective of those who voted for them or didn't vote for them. And I have no doubt that they'll work together for the benefit of Donegal and take the dun out of Donegal as a group of councillors, and please God, no longer be the orphan child of this state.
Okay, we're going to be talking about the railways, but we have to take a quick break and the news. Dr. Joe's going to stay with us. Any comments or actually questions about, the establishment and then the demise of the network in the Northwest, please get in touch with us now. Back in a sec.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
1984 saw the launch of the Macintosh, the first untethered spacewalk, Maradona's world record transfer fee, and a small car with a big personality met the world for the first time. The Seat Ibiza is 40 years young. To celebrate, Seat introduces the special edition Ibiza with a range of style and design features to make it even better. And not to be outdone, there's also a limited edition Arona to stir the senses. The limited edition Seat Ibiza and Arona. Discover our latest offers at DMG Motors Donegal Town.
Virgin Media is rolling out 2 gig full fibre broadband to more and more homes across Ireland. Big homes, little homes, haunted houses, big gaffs in the country, non-bouncy castles. Number 16, Oxbow Lake Houses. The house with all the cats. To get Ireland's best broadband, check your address at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
T's and C's apply. See virginmedia.ie. Subject to availability. Ireland's best broadband. See virginmedia.ie/proof.
Irish strawberry season is here. Let the fun begin. Pick up a punnet of Keeling's Irish strawberries in store today. Tasty, sweet, feel-good fruit. Fresh from our farm. Love that Keeling's feeling.
Attention golfers. Major value continues for the US Open at McGurk's Golf Letterkenny. Shop the top brands in golf like TaylorMade, Callaway, Under Armour, Adidas and more. Visit us at Unit 16 Letterkenny Folk Retail Park today.
At Connolly's Volkswagen Letterkenny, we're here to help you take care of and maintain the performance and safety of your vehicle. As your official Volkswagen and Audi service centre for Donegal, we want to keep your vehicle in the best condition with our fully qualified technicians, genuine parts and up-to-date diagnostic equipment and updates. When you book a service, you'll also receive free roadside assistance, oil and filter change and a 30-point checkover. Inquire today on 074 9122 333. Or visit connellys.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Cutting through the spin. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
OK, Dr. Joe Reid joining us very shortly talking about the railways. But first, let's get a news update. It's over to Donald Kavanagh.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. Health Minister Stephen Donnelly has told the Dáil this morning there are 437 more staff working at Letterkenny University Hospital than were there when the current government took office. But he accepts more needs to be done. Mr. Donnelly was responding to Deputy Pearse Doherty, who questioned him this morning on the lack of neurology services in Letterkenny. Mr. Donnelly said a review is ongoing of neurology and results should be available by the end of September. When they're available, he said, decisions will be taken. However, Pearse Doherty pointed out they were initially promised by the end of this month. He asked the Minister what was the reason for the delay. The Minister says the department will come back to him with a response to that. Donegal TD Thomas Pringle says the government has no understanding of the experience of families with children with disabilities. He's calling for more school-based summer provision and other measures. Deputy Pringle was addressing the Dáil during the debate on the Sinn Féin education motion. He said the government must reverse a decision to cut summer provision capitation payments and also ensure that all children have access to appropriate education in their own community. 5 fish producing and processing seafood organisations have joined together to call for changes in representation at EU level. 3 of the groups are based at Killybegs. They say this is the first step in seeking a more focused and coherent, united approach. On the show this morning, Brendan Byrne, the CEO of the Fish Processors and Exporters Association, says as a result of Brexit and the Common Fisheries Policy, the industry has taken and continues to take a significant hit, and changes must be brought in at European level to address that. Enoch Burke has lost his defamation action against the Sunday Independent. He sued the newspaper over an article that claimed he was moved to a new cell in Mountjoy Prison for annoying fellow inmates, something that wasn't actually true. The article said he'd been moved out of the prison population for his own safety. Mr. Burke claimed the article was damaging to his reputation. The judge ruled that with regard to his actual reputation at the time the article was published, it couldn't have injured it. And counting is continuing in the European Parliament elections. 9 seats are still to be filled. In the Midlands North West count, the votes of Senator Niall Blaney are currently being distributed. It's hoped there may be results by late tonight. However, Midlands North West in particular may go on into tomorrow morning. They're the headlines. Back with more at 12 noon.
Thanks very much, Donald. Back with Dr. Joe in 30 seconds.
Calling all bread enthusiasts, get ready to knead, bake and rise to the challenge with the launch of Rise with Aldi's new bread baking competition. This year's winner will pocket €15,000 and get to sell their prize loaf in Aldi stores for a whole year. Visit aldi.ie/rise with Aldi for details on drop-off points at selected Aldi stores. Not trying to butter you up, but we know you can do it. Go all Aldi. T's and C's apply. Visit aldi.ie/rise with Aldi for details.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. We're talking history with Dr. Joe and we're talking our railways. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Again. Right, so I'm watching a graphic and playing out to our watchers here. 1850, 1851, 1854. Nothing in Donegal yet. Then we're getting to 1862. I'm going to go through all this. 1864, 1865, we're starting to see the inroads into the county. We're up to 1875. We're into Letterkenny. We're coming towards 1885. Bridgend down to Letterkenny seems to be working on. Letterkenny's just headed into Donegal and off to Killybegs and across to Burton Port. And then we've just gone into Inishowen at the turn of the century, and now we skirt the west coast. 1905, 1906, 1915. It's just a plethora of rails. You can't move around Donegal. There's so many rail lines. The guard's down. You can't get through. Your horse and cart, you peed off. What's happening? 1935. It's all still there. 1940, 1942. Switched to freight only, and it's being pulled back. It's gone. It's all gone. It's all gone.
Yeah, that's the story, all right. 1834, there were 6 miles of rail in Ireland, 1834. And by 1912, there was 3,403 miles of rail track in Ireland. So maybe we should write a letter to Richie Sunak and ask him would he have us back and join the Empire again so we get our train back.
Right,
but,
so let's go back to the start then. When did the idea of rail begin in Ireland and timeline it through Donegal? My grand national interpretation there will have went over a lot of people's heads, and rightly so. So when did we go, right, okay, here's a new way of doing things?
Well, first of all, you see, Donegal, being where it was geographically, was very cut off, and Derry was our natural, centre for Donegal and for the northwest. And there was initially a plan that we needed to open up our network of transport, and they were going to the isthmus across from Derry to join Lough Foyle with Lough Swilly. They were proposing to build a 6-mile canal in the 1760s, and it was proposed a number of times, but it never happened. But just even the concept was amazing, and the engineering was done and the planning was done, but it was never built. And imagine even today joining the Foyle and the Swilly, what that would do. But it was unfortunate in one way that it didn't happen, because at that point rail started to take off, and during Victorian times, say in England in 1830s onwards, the expansion of rail took place, and then obviously that moved then into Ireland, being a sister of the country of the empire, and so rails began to expand in Ireland, and it started really with in Derry, Londonderry and the Skillen Railway opened in 1847, and then in 1853 it was Londonderry to Coleraine. So that was the initial northwest area, how it started out. And in 1845, 2 options were proposed for Donegal. These were only proposals. In September 1845, Lord George Hill and a few others were proposing a Great Northern or Donegal Railway from Ballyshannon to Ramelton. This is what they wanted, through Donegal town, Letterkenny, and then branching off to Lifford and Derry. And that was the plan in 1845. And again, the idea was if they could get as far as Ramelton, that they could get to the sea. And then they could start shipping and steamboats.
But Joe, was this argument coming from Donegal, or were people in Dublin going, right, there's benefit in us being able to sort of transport stuff to or from Donegal? Or were we at that time going, we're starting to see railway develop all the while, this could really do well for our area if we get the railway in, and people were campaigning in that regard? I'm just wondering, because to compare the conversation back then to sort of the conversation that's been ongoing here now.
Yeah, well, see, the problem was this, and brilliant point. In England, you see, there was an industrial revolution when England became the workshop of the world. So there was massive need for movement of materials and products to factories. So it was in business interest and financiers' interests to build trains, and it was profitable. In Ireland, we never had an industrial revolution. We were an agricultural and still are an agricultural country. So private investors weren't so much interested in developing train tracks in Ireland because it wasn't going to be viable financially. However, some of the resident landlords, for example, Lord George Hill, who was here in Donegal, Ramelton and the Courch Hotel in Gweedore, he was promoting the idea of rail in the hope that maybe investors would help and would fund some of it. Well, that was the idea anyway. And so what happened was initially the first thing was a rail went from Derry, or Londonderry, as it was called, Londonderry train station, out to Farland Point. It was the first rail in Donegal, and that was 1864. But it didn't last very long; only lasted for two years. But at this stage, then the idea of, well, we've got that far. How about moving into the Finn Valley, and the whole idea of moving up into Donegal town? And at that time, there were a lot of wealthy landlords, Lord Lifford and Samuel Hayes and people like that were alive at the time, were able to promote the idea of a rail track, which would have been relatively easy for them, the ground being flat, etc. And so they decided that they would go ahead. It was 5,300 per mile sterling, and it cost 70,000, and it ran then from Derry into Stranorlar. And that was the first really main artery opened out from Derry into Donegal. It was called the Finn Valley Rail Project. And then at this stage, you got to remember, Letterkenny wasn't as populous as it is now. There were towns bigger than Letterkenny. Buncrana was a big town in relative terms. Ballyshannon was a big town in relative terms. Letterkenny wasn't relatively that big, even though it was growing. But at this stage, people proposed, what about Letterkenny? And in 1855, the first proposal came to develop a rail from Derry into Letterkenny. But like everything else, it met obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And you needed a governmental act for the rail track to be allowed. That's number one. And then there were very much like where the banks are regulated by the central bank, and organizations, insurance companies, they're all controlled by central bank policies and regulations. Well, the rail was controlled in certain ways by government regulations, so you only could borrow so much and to promote this rail. So they were very, very restricted. And Letterkenny kept hitting a brick wall of just red tape and bureaucracy, and the rail had been promoted as early as 1855, but one thing after another. They had got £100,000 of funding, but it started in 1860, and in 1866 they ran out of money, so it halted again, and they needed more money, and various government acts had to be passed in Westminster, 1871, 74, 76, and finally in 78 they passed an act which would see the completion of the Letterkenny-Derry connection. But what was very, very interesting was that that they had made an obligation that the rail track going over the Letterkenny Bridge would have to be lit at night for the boats. So it must have been a beautiful sight to see. Wow. That it must be continuously lit so that boats could go under the carriage for safe passage. But the solution to the problem was it was costing too much. And this man, McRae and Farland, they were the engineers and promoters, said, well, if we go the narrow gauge, which is 3 foot, the normal gauge is 5 foot 3 inches wide. If we go the narrow gauge, the 3 foot gauge, it'll be cheaper. And so they said, okay, we'll go with that. At least we'll have a train track. And so they completed the train track, and that opened then for Letterkenny. And it was very, very important for it, obviously, because it opened up the whole area into Letterkenny to Derry, and Letterkenny then began to grow. So that's 1883.
So that's just an important thing there. So really, you could timeline the more rapid expansion of Letterkenny with the interconnectivity.
Yes, absolutely. And it made it more business-wise, more real, and it drew industry into the place. And it was allowing for materials, for example, seaweed and fish and netting, etc., from the west of Donegal to go to Letterkenny and then take the train and head on. But
so you talked about the waterways there, and part of the deal was the bridge would be lit so boats could see. Is there a correlation between the decline in the use of the waterways and the railway, I wonder?
Well, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. It complemented. It is true that it would have reduced because the carriage could have taken a lot more and a lot quicker. But it allowed also for the steamboats between Glasgow and Liverpool to avail from Letterkenny. The train was coming in, and now this gave access outwards, if that makes sense, on these boats. You see, you've got to remember at that time, a lot of Irish, or Donegal people, should I say, were emigrating. And Derry was the natural place to leave. So here the train was carrying people to leave as well. So it worked both ways. Brought in industry, but it also allowed...
I know we're talking about the railways, but you've said something there and it's fascinating because, of course, I'm from outside Letterkenny. So how much traffic was coming in the waterways into Letterkenny towards the end of the 19th century, 18th?
Yeah.
I mean, how busy was it? And how long would it take to get from the sea into Letterkenny? That was routine. That routinely happened, obviously.
It was routine, and it was not just Letterkenny. Like Rathmullen would have been important,
of course.
Very, very, and Ramelton was very, very important as well. I mean, we see there the stores are still there. You know, the Footful Special, that was very, very important. Remember Milford Bakery? I mean, all the flour was taken in on boats into Milford Bakery. That's within my own life.
I find that amazing. Even, you know, just the whole idea that we're using the waterways. Obviously, lots of dredging and stuff going on, presumably.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it was just not in that part. It went right round the northwest of Donegal, and it was very important. Rutland was a very, very significant island, Rutland Island, and if you ever look at pictures of it and even been there, you see some of the buildings. They're beautiful buildings. This was Rutland built it, realising it could be a fishery centre, and we'll see this later on with the Burton Port extension. But Letterkenny got its rail. Problem was it was a narrow gauge, and you had to get off at Tobin, everything off, and then transport that, move that onto another train, and then head off to Derry. So this was a little bit of a problem, but it was a solution to do it the cheaper way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then you have Letterkenny now connected, and it's moving out towards Donegal town. In the meantime, it's moving towards Buncrana, up that direction as well. So the only place then is the west, my own area. And this man called J.J. Alford, he was Alport, he was appointed by the government, and the government realised that private investors weren't going to invest in the northwest of Donegal. And so what were we going to do here? And they sent this man to do an investigation as to how he could expand the railways, and in particular, how to access the fisheries of the west of Donegal, because they realised the importance financially. And he came back with a number of ideas and said, look, government should help fund this on a 50-50 basis. And so that if there's profits made, the government make 50%. If there's a loss made, the government take 50% of the loss as well. And so that encouraged investors to consider developing the Northwest Rail link into the heart of Donegal, Northwest Donegal.
Where would the return be there, though? Passenger numbers would have to be high, though, for a private investor to sort of go in there and expect a return on their investment, I wonder, Joe.
Yeah, but if you're a landlord and your tenants were going to have a train rail coming to their track, that meant then that you could get your eggs and your butter to the fair, you could get your kelp out, you could get, so your tenants were going to get wealthier, and if your tenants were going to get wealthier, you were going to benefit from an increased rental. Do you understand? It's kind of demand idea, so there's a bit of that going on as well.
So and just before you go, sorry, because this is just an area of so many questions, and you're going to talk about Burton Port and the fishes, but when they were going from Letterkenny to Donegal town, I would love to know the thought process of why it was seen what must have been more difficult to put the railway so high up the mountain, up the hill there through the gap, rather than in the lower lying land. Maybe it was to do with water or flooding or what have you. But I can only imagine what it must have been like to travel on that route on the side of Barnesmore there. But it sounds like the way more difficult, more expensive way of doing it.
Well, 5,300 per mile, that was what they estimated, and it would be nearly the same for the other rail tracks as well. And there was no diggers and none of these mechanical excavators that we have now. It was all done by hand. Hard work, but men were paid, and they got good employment from it. But obviously the side of the mountain also gave a rock structure and a foundation, so that if you dug into the side of the mountain, then the bit that you dug out was there for your foundation.
True. Yeah, I suppose.
So it was easier in that sense. But again, I don't know exactly the...
No, I know. I'm kind of spitballing here. I know you're not going to know the intricacies of the planning process, but...
But what's important, and you hit a nail there, it moved towards Donegal town much quicker than it did to the west. And that was due the fact that there were wealthier people living there, landlords were there, and also the kind of a Protestant ascendancy, that they were strong Protestant representatives that had the ear of government in Ireland, and they were able to influence the investment and the extension of the railway along that route into the east of Donegal. That was just a socio-political reality, and Frank Sweeney, who wrote his thesis, a PhD thesis, God rest him, on the Donegal Railway, makes that point in that, and he explains how it developed into the east of the county a lot quicker than it did to the west, and probably because of influence. It's if you're not at the table, you don't have the say as much, and they obviously had. So what happened then, realizing that the Northwest wasn't financially viable, the government decided, look, we need to help here, we need to support. And there was Arthur Balfour. He promised that there'd be a railway in 1890 into the West, and that there'd be funding made available, free grants from government if a rail company would take it on board. And it's called the Railway Act of 1889. Now, you've got to remember, at this time in Donegal, there was a land war going on, particularly in Gweedore and Cloughaneely, where tenants were refusing to pay landlords their rents, and then the tenants were all being evicted in Falcara and Gweedore. Father McFadden in Gweedore, the Patriot priest, was jailed twice. The district inspector was killed outside the church in Gweedore when he tried to arrest the priest. Father Stevens in Falcara was jailed. He was jailed twice. So there was a lot of social and political turmoil going on in the 1889-90 in Cloughaneely and Gweedore. And yet Balfour, the chief secretary, came to Gweedore with the intention of seeing how could he promote the rail. And what I found was very ironic, he was behind getting these priests jailed, and that was anathema back then to touch a cleric. And the tenant, they spoke on behalf of the tenants because they had education. None of the tenants had education, but the priests had, and they spoke for the tenants. And because they spoke, they put them to jail in the hope then that the tenants would have nobody to speak for them. But it backfired. The tenants stayed loyal to their priests, and the priests stayed loyal to the tenants, and they eventually overcame it at a lot of personal cost and suffering. But what I found very interesting was Alford, the local landlord, and Hill had been promoting a railway into the west. It was called the Inland Route from Letterkenny into Kilmacrennan, Garton, down into Falcara and into Gweedore initially. And here he was promoting this, and who was supporting him but the very priests that he was at war with? It just shows you that, like, it's like the county councillors getting elected, and they disagree in policy and getting elected, but then when they're in the chamber, they realise they have to work together. And these very priests that were opposing him, and he was, so to speak, at odds with, were 100% behind him, because they realised the value of the train coming into Donegal. In fact, Father McFadden Glenelg wrote a book about the land war in Donegal, and he stuck on at the end of it, and letters about the railway into Burtonport. So eventually the rail track, there was a promise that Balfour would do that, but unfortunately then the Conservative government lost. He was moved, and then a Liberal government came in, and then eventually then and his brother was appointed as Chief Secretary of Ireland, and he continued the work that his brother had started. And all the time, like the Sonara Donegal town started in 1880 and was finished in 1889. So the train now had come into Donegal town by 1889, and it was the 5-foot 3-inch gauge. That was the broad gauge. That's what you were talking about earlier on. So they were looking at Donegal where to finish off into the west. And there was lots of different proposals. Leitrim, who was the landlord, wanted it into Milford area, down into Ramelton, even as far as Rathmullen. Alford and his supporters were suggesting that it would go into Falcara because he wanted it in his. And this created a lot of tension. And for a long time, it was over and back and over and back. And eventually it was decided, look, the English government, we'll get the Board of Works, our own people. It's like the county council building houses. We'll get our own Board of Works to build the track, and then we'll hand it over to the Donegal Rail Company to run. And that's eventually what happened. And they came up with a different proposal, very similar to the initial proposal by Alford in 1880, to run the rail right into Burtonport. So from Letterkenny into Kilmacrennan, Creesla, Dunfanaghy. Well, it was to go to Dunfanaghy, but it cut across from Creesla to Falcara, then into Cashnagore, Gweedore, Crawley, Dunlow, and then into Burtonport. And that was eventually the route. Was
the gauge ever updated between Derry and Letterkenny?
Yeah, they had to go back then, and they had to rechange all the gauges in Donegal to the narrow gauge again because it was cheaper. But the problem with the narrow gauge, it wouldn't take as heavy a vehicle and as heavy a load. But yes, they had to go back then and re-gauge them.
And late in the process, one of the last routes was up into North Inishowen. I wonder what drove that. Was that the influence of landlords again? Because as I say, I think that was the sort of the turn of the 18th into the 19th century that right up to the north of Inishowen was included.
Yeah, but you got to understand again that there was a populace there, there was a population there, and again that was driven, as you say, by that, and also by the fact that the government now were stepping in to fund, co-fund, and to help private investors in developing the rail network. And you know, again, much as maybe at times we're at odds with what happened to us with the British in history, one has to admire them for their ability to build infrastructure. And like, there's not a bridge or a road into my parish or a pier that the British government didn't build.
But there's a will. If you have a will, we can achieve anything we want to. If the government says today that we are going to do such and such, and they committed to it, it would be done. Every problem could be overcome.
Well, I think, and I was listening to you one day there a few days ago, you were talking about how small Ireland is. Ireland is no bigger than Manchester, Greater Manchester area. And I just don't understand why we cannot. It's a small ship, so to speak, nationally. It's easy to turn. It's like a big ship, them big cruisers, they need to turn off the engine maybe 12, 15 miles before they come into dock, because that's the energy that they push. That's where a small boat can turn very, very quickly. And there's something wrong with our whole psychological, but this is for another day, our whole psychology in Ireland. And I think it's partly due to colonialism. That we feel that other people can do it for us. And maybe, for example, we're talking about the local elections, people are beginning to realise that nobody's going to do anything for us.
Yeah, but with the size of a city, or a city in its greater area, yet we've the economy of a country.
Yes.
You know, there are other countries that are the size of a country and their economy matches that. There's a mismatch. I'm going to have to take one more break, but listen, just to give you a moment to think on this, Joe needs to recheck his stats. That's not often the way a text starts when I'm talking to you, Joe. Ballyshannon in the mid-1800s was the biggest population town, which I think you mentioned, followed by Letterkenny, which excluded the old town. It was the second biggest, difference of 234 people. Moville had a bigger population than Buncrana in Inishowen. The exclusion of Old Town placed LK in second place prior to the famine. LK had the biggest population. But listen, we're talking about of a time, and it's also good to get Buncrana mentioned. Stay there, Joe, because we're going to have to fortunately start talking about the demise of the rail after these.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Enjoy summer with Home Store and more. Bring your garden to life with our great range of garden furniture, including rattan corner sets, dinner sets, and much more. And when it comes to barbecues, whether gas, charcoal or smoker, we've got what you need to cook up a storm. There's also gazebos and garden decor. Light up your garden with our extensive range of solar lights, string lights, post lights, lanterns and much more. Make your garden your sanctuary. Come visit our stores and see for yourself, or shop online at homestoreandmore.ie. Home Store and More. A happy home.
From fresh strawberries to fresh tomatoes, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best of local. And having worked hard to make a number of new refurbishments, now your nearby store will look just as fresh. Visit our new look Tesco Letterkenny today and see for yourself. Tesco. Every little helps.
Sit back, relax and sink into the comfort of a new sofa at Easy Living Furniture Sofa Sale. Luxurious designs, unbeatable prices and endless comfort await you. Sofa Sale now on at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Easy Living Furniture. Luxury furnishings. Affordable luxury.
Be a winner and view the trophy collection at Brian McCormick Sports. Full colour awards, glass and crystal, perpetual cups and shields, sports awards, metal cups and medals. Whatever the occasion, click bmcsports.ie. Budget medals for sports days with personalised inserts to promote your club and school. Full engraving service available at Brian McCormick Sports, Main Street, Letterkenny.
The Buncrana Golf Club development draw is here, with over €40,000 in prizes up for grabs. The grand prize is a stunning Hyundai i30 N-Line, plus 4 other fantastic prizes worth over €10,000. Tickets are available online at driveathomedraw.ie or from any club member. Don't miss your chance to win big and support Buncrana Golf Club. Get your tickets today.
Smacked myself in the head with the headphones. Okay, we are talking to Dr. Joe Kelly. We're talking history. We're talking about the railways. In terms of the railway establishment, is there anything important that needs to be added, I suppose, before we start talking about their demise, Joe?
Well, maybe I have to maybe sensitive in this, but one of the saddest moments in the history of the railway, the Swilly Railway into Northwest, was the Creasta disaster. And look, we've been there again, unfortunately, with Creasla. But in 1925, the 31st of January 1925, the train had left Derry, then to Letterkenny, and about 7:05 had left Letterkenny. It was a stormy night. It was going over the Owen Carrow Viaduct. The train driver slowed down, but the carriage was blown off, and 4 people fell to their deaths, and there was quite a number of people injured. But and it was a sad story. Father Barney Gallagher, I mean, we think of Father John, Father Barney Gallagher attended the injured and the dead, and did what he could. But there were a number of men. There was a James McFadden from Kilfad and a Pat McFadden from Cheerlin, just nearby, who hung by chains and went down into the carriages to rescue the other passengers. Great bravery.
And was that the other than that, were the railways safe? If you know what I mean, was that an isolated incident? And obviously the most tragic because of the amount of life lost in the one incident. But I'm just wondering, would the safety record of the Donegal railways otherwise have been high?
It would have been. See, the thing is, the rail wasn't going that terribly fast.
Yeah, of course.
You could jump off it and back on it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it wasn't a high-speed rail network. But obviously there would have been accidents here and there, and animals and
that
things
kind
like
of stuff. Yeah.
Through farmland, etc. So obviously you'd expect that, but it had a very fairly good record, and it opened up the whole Northwest. And the idea was that you could catch a fish in Burton Port, and within 24 hours that fish could be on the market in London. It's just fascinating to think that, and this is going back to 1903 when the train track was opened here in Donegal and into Burton Port, 1903, that we had that access into the heart of London. Again, it's sad to think that we no longer have that. But
then, like, I've heard anecdotally people say that, you know, the decision to sort of start removing the railway was that, you know, people thought it was old hat and the future was road transportation, articulated lorries and for moving goods and what have you. Any truth to that, or what led to the demise of the rail as we know it?
Well, you see, transport had changed in the sense that you had now buses and roads were being tarred more. If you go back to the 1950s, there weren't very many tarred roads. And as the roads began to get better and improve, buses and private vehicles could take you from your town. See, for example, the Filcara train station was a good distance away from the Filcara town, and Gweedore was a good distance away from the populace. So your bus now would pick you up at your door nearly, and you could jump on that. So people then, and it was cheaper, and lorries and freight could access, you know, your house a lot easier, transporting stuff than the train. So in a way that actually changed the whole development. And the Swilly Transport Company invested in buses, invested in lorries, and realized that people, you know, would avail of this as much as they would of the train. So over time, it became less and less important economically and also for transport. So in 1940, the Burton Port Gweedore section was closed.
It stayed open for freight, though, didn't it? It was closed as a passenger service.
Well, in 1948, you see, the war was in 39 to 45 kept it open because of turf. People needed turf, so Northwest Donegal could carry out the turf. And if anybody ever goes to Phoenix Park, there's these massive hills in the middle of Phoenix Park that make no sense. Well, not hills, but they're
mounds.
30, 40 feet. Yeah, big mounds. And De Valera decided to take turf into Dublin during the World War II to have it there in case, because there was no coal, and they used up whatever, but the rest of it obviously is covered now by grass, and it's still sitting there in Phoenix Park.
So, tell you, I bet you people didn't know that the mounds in Phoenix Park, at least some of them, are turf storage from the war times.
The war. And so the rail in Donegal was important for that, because we were able to, move the turf during the emergency when we didn't have other oil and coal and so forth. So after the emergency, the Lost Swilly company developed more from the rail to the road, as I was saying, and more passengers availed of the buses, and the freight and postal service availed more of buses and lorries.
So we lose into the west, we lose into North Inishowen. And after that, is it just downgraded?
Downgraded, and it closes more and more down. The financial viability of it then at that stage. So by 1953, the rail services were ended, and the network that was previously established was almost completely
and
closed.
Was there any rule in place whereby the infrastructure had to remain in place for a period of time to allow, say, for instance, a different government to change mind or change tact?
Well, as far as I know, and I don't want to get into the legal complications of it, but it was transferred then legally that the rail network should always be there, and anybody that, say, farmers that took over farms where the train track was going through, it was on them that the conveyancing had to be paid for to take it into their own ownership. But the idea was that the rail network would remain there even though there was no rail. But you've got to remember, when we got independence, that Ireland was a very poor country. We didn't have the finances, we didn't have the money. And more importantly, maybe people's vision wasn't looking long term. Like, we do censuses now every 5 years, and we're trying to figure out how many kids, for example, are born. Will our schools have enough capacity in 4 or 5 years when they're of that age, or secondary school? We're thinking of our aging population, for example, in Northwest Donegal, and we know in 5-10 years' times we'll need more services in that area. We're able to plan and think these things out now. Back then, they weren't thinking like that.
I just wonder, was the political opposition to it or lobby groups saying, you're really making a bad decision here? You're not thinking. Now, I know no one was saying that diesel and petrol's destroying the environment or anything, but I just wonder, were people going, oh, well, sure, we don't use the railway anyway, stuff it, or were they going, you are really taking away vital infrastructure here in the county. This is a bad decision. I might actually check the Dáil record to see, because it wouldn't be hard to find out.
The Dáil record, I remember reading somewhere that they were discussing this and didn't want to see it closed down, particularly the TDs in the west of Donegal. But look, the decision was a financial decision, and was obviously a private industry, and they were saying, look, this isn't viable for us. People were happier with using the buses.
But that's the argument now. You see, the argument Inra Darren made, and they made this argument 15 years ago, is that it will never be financially viable to provide a rail service into Donegal. But we subsidise lots of things, airports, bus. You know what I'm on about, but it's still an awful lot of what you're saying about the establishment and the resistance to it is about funding, about viability, and here we are, 100, 200, 300 years later, and the same conversations are happening. It's really everything changes, but nothing changes either.
Well, we talked about how the British government realised that the train network in Donegal wasn't viable without governmental support, and they'd realised the congested district boards had been set up to help areas of high poverty, particularly Donegal, run along the whole west coast of Ireland, and they pumped millions and millions into areas, knowing that they weren't viable. Maybe we'll talk about the congested district board again, but they were very instrumental in establishing the train tracks in Ireland and getting, and particularly in Donegal. And the British government realised, look, we have to fund these areas to try to bring them up. And we're having EU elections, and we're looking at the EU averages. We're way below the EU average when it comes to income and things like that.
Well, the west of the county's actually even gone down in terms of the west of the country, by the EU metrics, has even gone down in terms of deprivation in recent years.
And it's not an issue of necessarily our government alone. I mean, there are mechanisms and financial mechanisms within the EU for structural development. Again, I know there's a Western Corridor Link group that has been going since, I think, 2003. So they're going on for over 20 plus years, and they're doing brilliant work. But again, bringing this to Europe and say, look, we need an investment. Of
but the
capital.
victory for that campaign is a connection between Derry and Letterkenny.
Yeah,
you know.
But look, this should be part of the discussion for United Ireland. You know, we should be having that said. Say we're suffering now because of Brexit. Donegal particularly is suffering because of Brexit. And the rail, and I never heard that in the Brexit debate. We should be asking for our infrastructure. I mean, we talk about the rail from, or not the rail, the road from Derry to Dublin. I mean, what's going on here? It's slowed up, and it's politics. And I'm not blaming politicians or getting political on it, but this is about will and about.
Well, the 10T project is the 10T project is ongoing planning, and all that's coming into place. For me, the whole system is flawed if that route, particularly from Letterkenny to Lifford, does not have space or does not account for the potential provision of rail into the future. Now, during this planning, there'll be cycle lanes, there'll be walking lanes, and that's fine. But if we were serious about ever connecting the likes of Letterkenny into the north, these plans now would have to provide for that.
Absolutely.
Whilst we're going through this process, but unfortunately they don't.
Exactly. And I agree with you on that there. And again, there's lots of other things that we could be doing. Again, there's a water crisis, and it doesn't stop raining here in Donegal. Imagine we would dam some of our lakes at a very, very easy cost.
Why do that when we can lay a pipe from Buncrana into Letterkenny? Now, why would we be... It's crazy, isn't it?
Wouldn't make that, but,
there's a pipe running from the Eddie Fullerton Dam into Letterkenny.
But again, water could be sent out of the county, out of the country. I mean, imagination is needed here. The gas network, again, we don't have it here in Donegal. And look, it's all about political will and people that are willing to champion these things.
Right.
And this is back to the politics.
Okay, in the last couple of minutes then, any little ditties for us as it relates to the railway? Any folklore, any stories that you can share?
Well, I'm sure your listeners have lots and lots of stories. I can think of a few I've heard over the years. One sad one woman, she left her baby on a hedge. Here in my parish, just abandoned the baby and jumped on the train, and away she went, and the baby was taken into care. I mean, they were different times, very sad times, but that was one sad story. I remember Canon Doherty telling me, he was the Donegal Man of the Year. I knew him fairly well. He's dead now, but he was a Maynooth, and his father was in the IRA, and in the old IRA, and the British Army were coming into the northwest of Donegal, and they tried to get the train driver not to drive, and that wouldn't work. But the stoker was from Burton Port, and he said, "Okay, I'll not stoke the train, so the train can't move, but I need to get back to Burton Port." And Canon Doherty's father said, "Look, we'll sort that out." They commandeered a car, and they gave it to Canon Doherty. He was a young boy, about 18, 19, and he drove the stoker back to Burton Port, drove him home, and then proceeded to go back to Letterkenny. And as he was going through Dunfanaghy, the RIC were waiting for him, arrested him, and jailed him for the night. Now, he was a young man of 18, 19. I think he was in the seminary at the time. And I remember years later when he was appointed as parish priest of Dunfanaghy, he said, "The first night I spent in Dunfanaghy, I spent in jail," which was true. So he spent his first night in jail because of taking the stoker off the train back to Burton Port. But there's lots of other stories. Patrick Pearse, about him coming on the train to Creasla, and Roger Caseman would have come to Fulcara or to Gotahork, and how some young girl had her shoe broken, and there he was going through some of the baggage in Cashnagore station, trying to fix her shoe with a hammer. Lots and lots of other
There's a
stories.
gentleman has hours and hours and hours of footage of the railways, and I posted a clip that was sent to me of people in Creasla boarding the train and waving off and all this kind of stuff. Really decent quality footage, and the original holder of that footage contacted me and say, "I've got hours and hours and hours of this, and I don't know what to do with it. Maybe you could share it out through your channels." And unfortunately, I've lost that message. But there are tens of hours of footage of the Donegal railways out there. So if that fella's listening, I'd love to get back in touch with us. Maybe putting him in contact with the county museum, because this is our heritage and this is our history. And lastly, briefly, a caller says we'll be. There's no point talking about rail because we'll be flying around in drones. Listen, there's people very confidently predicted we'd be in flying cars by the year 2000. So I wouldn't be waiting on flying technology for a while yet for this type of travel. But will we ever see? We'll never see a rail network in Donegal like we did in the past.
Well, sure, hope springs eternal, and hopefully we will. Somebody with, they're trying to champion it with the Western Corridor, and it'd be great if Donegal would have that. Will it ever happen? It doesn't look like at the moment the political will isn't there to do that. But sure, God knows. And again, if we have United Ireland, we really seriously have to consider how we improve our network, particularly across the Ulster.
But there was a lot of talk not so long about downgrading Derry to Belfast, and thankfully that didn't happen. So there's still a bit of attitudes to change. Joe, listen, thank you as always. It's been absolutely brilliant, fascinating stuff. Thanks for all of your time.
God bless you.
Take care. Slán go fóill. Okay, that's Dr. Joe Kelly. We've been talking history and we've been talking the rails. 086 60 25,000.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Score big this week at Centra with our winning offers. Like Diet Coke and Coca-Cola Zero 2 litre selected range, any 2 for €4 plus deposit. Selected Cadbury Nestle chocolates, any 3 for €5. And 19 Crimes Wine Sauvignon Blanc, €10. It's all kicking off. Centra. Live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
Irwin Expert Electrical, your trusted destination for all things home appliances, electrical and entertainment in the Northwest. With over 50 years of leading the way, we pride ourselves on offering a diverse range of products under one roof. From top brands like LG, Samsung, Cooker, Bosch, Apple and more, take advantage of our free layaway service where you can store your new items until you're ready for them. Perfect for renovations and new build projects. Visit Irwin Expert Electrical today in Letterkenny or Buncrana.
Don't wait or dream of having that perfect smile. David McConville Orthodontics in Donegal Town has expanded and are thrilled to announce that they are now taking on new patients with no waiting list. Let us prioritise you and start your new smile journey today. Visit davidmcconvilleorthodontics.ie or call 074 97235506. David McConville Orthodontics Donegal Town, creating smiles with care.
Hosa give blood punkai gur féidirlinn bheithe bratharibh. Pobl don't tóirí folla dorgid, le bheithir fáil do ghine eile agus iad de grú chás. Is féidir le don't tóirí rialta chuine I dhéanamh ag give blood punkai. Nú tríd gléacha chur a héan a hocht a náid, a seach de trí a héan trí a seacht. Tá sé fíor hochtach don't tóirí nó aimsú. Tuair cuairt ar siamh gréasáin, chuin in cháile hocht agus sunraí clinicí a cheacáil. Tommy de Brahart.
The Highland Radio Hoolie to Salou is getting closer. Join me, David James, and a host of Ireland's top artists for a week of fun in the sun. Staying for 7 nights in the stunning 4-star Sol Costa Jurado Hotel with non-stop entertainment morning, noon and night. But hurry, we only have a limited number of places available. Don't miss out on the holiday of a lifetime this September. To book, call Country Music Tours on 074 91 19 955. We'll see you in Salou.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Go full family dinners on Lidl Plus. Mix and match any 3 Irish barbecue meats for just €9. Make chicken dishes to please the whole table, bring your beef burgers to the next level, and pick from our succulent pork. Family dinners sorted all week. Go on, mix and match any 3 for €9. Scan the Lidl Plus app and go full Lidl today.
Here at Kelly Cleaning Equipment, we have everything you need to clean your home, garden and business. As an official Gold Plus cashier dealer, we offer brand-leading domestic and commercial pressure washers, vacuum cleaners, floor scrubbers, steam cleaners, carpet cleaners and much more. Come and see us at Eurohouse, Killybegs Road, Donegal Town or online at kellycleaningequipment.ie. And for a limited time only, claim up to €150 cashback when purchasing a cashier professional pressure washer. Kelly Cleaning Equipment. Choose cashier.
It's your fault. You deserve it. It's all in your head. They don't mean it. They can change. Recognizing male domestic abuse can be hard. Seeking support can be harder. For confidential advice and support, free phone the National Mail Advice Line on 1800 816 588. MAL, more than just a helpline.
This year, Kia has unbeatable offers just for you. With any 242 pre-order, you'll receive a €500 Super Value voucher and 7-year warranty. And there's more. Enjoy 0% finance on all electric vehicles and get a free home charger. At iMotors, we're proud to stock the World Car of the Year, the EV9, and Donegal's best-selling car, the Sportage. Visit iMotors in John Keener Malin today and take advantage of these limited time offers. Don't miss out.
iMotors, fearless generation.
Make Father's Day simply better and celebrate Dad with a feast. Fire up the barbecue for chicken wings, Irish Angus beef burgers and award-winning Irish Angus steaks. Or choose from a delicious range of antipasti favourites. Save 20% on Simply Better wines from around the world and finish with a selection of Italian-made gelato. Plus, you can save at the till with a 10 off 50 grocery voucher. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next grocery shop of €50 or more. Voucher excludes alcohol. Please drink sensibly.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhenny's. Support local at McElhenny's. With 53 years experience in fashion, beauty and home, we're here for you. Plus, enjoy M-Card rewards when you shop in-store at McElhenny's Ballybuffet.
Rain will become widespread through the morning and for the afternoon. Some of it will be heavy and it will become mostly dry, though, in the evening, which is a good thing. A breezy day with highest temperatures of 13 to 16 degrees. Ena Martin is a comedian and joins me on the programme now. Good morning to you, Enya.
How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. What about you?
I'm gearing up for my show on Letterkenny tonight.
Harry Janey. And come here, people will know you perhaps online, obviously Enya, but also your handle is Gizalaugh, Gizallaugh. This all started back in the mid-noughties, did it?
Yeah, 2014 was when I launched my first video, and then my first stand-up gig was around 2017. So I was going for a while before I stepped onto stage. So
and did did going on stage follow on from sort of the social media stuff, Enya? Or was it part of a plan, or did you catch on social media and say, right, I think I can transfer this to the stage?
The plan was to kind of always stay online. I never had a fear of like public speaking, but standing on stage and waiting for like laughs, like that's instant feedback, that terrified me. Whereas when you're on your laptop, you know, I used to have to edit the videos on my laptop back then and film everything horizontally. But I would close the laptop and just leave it there for about half an hour. Whereas when you're on stage, they either let you know straight away or they don't.
I listened to a lot of different podcasts and with interviews with comedians in the past, mostly on the British circuit, but in Ireland as well. And they talk about, you know, going to the Edinburgh Fringe, and they talk about their shows and like a lot of stinkers in there. And then they have good shows. And just listening to it in the round, I wonder, why would anyone do it? It seems really, really tough to put yourself out on stage. There's very little glamour to it, Enya. You know what I mean? As you say, you're there in front of people, no edits. You really have to have a testicular fortitude, or whatever way you might want to describe it.
Yeah, you have to have a thick skin, and I think like you have to have a lot of confidence or self-belief that it's nearly like a sixth sense. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure these jokes are going to work. Now 8 times out of 10 they do, but I have had moments where like I'm just greeted with silence, and you just kind of have to swiftly move on and just not make it look obvious. Like, you were supposed to laugh here.
Make you part of the show. How would you describe your comedy? I don't want to frame. Is it observational? Is it sort of like, you know, the viewer or the audience can sort of relate to it because it's very us? Or how would you frame it?
Yeah, so everyday situations. So I usually stick to the same kind of themes that we can all relate to, because comedy has to be relatable. Like nobody's going to laugh about a private joke that me and my boyfriend have, you know. So it has to be something that everyone can relate to, like the Middle Island Aldi, going on holidays, things you encounter while you're on your holiday, Dublin Airport, again, relationships, things that happen in relationships, your friends, groups of girls, etc. I just look at my audience, the type of people they are, and think, what would they laugh at?
Yeah, exactly. And the material is there, but the talent comes from someone like yourself being able to turn that into the humour. Do you know what I mean? It's the delivery and the presentation that makes it drop, I think, on the audience.
Oh yeah, like that's a skill in itself, and you get better with repetition. Like I used to talk really, really fast on stage in the beginning, and now like I take my time and I know how to word a joke, and it's all about comic timing as well, like how you deliver a joke versus what it would look like on a page, if you know what I mean. If you were to read it out off a page, how do you make it sound funny? That's what a comic can do.
Now, your new show is that you're taking to Letterkenny tonight. Is it just me? And I presume it's like, is it just me, or
Yes,
is that
yeah,
the
exactly.
context of it, right? Yeah.
Is it now I know it's not just me, but that's like the question. Be like, is it just my boyfriend who does this? Is it just my friends who carry on like this, or is it just me who experiences this on holiday? So there's a lot of that, yeah. So people will be able to relate to 100%.
Yeah, that phrase, it's funny how people use it, especially on social media, because people go like, and they probably shouldn't comment on people's weight or whatever, but it's like, is it just me, or is he put on a bit of weight? And I don't know why people don't comment on it. No, it's both of yous. You know what I mean? But it's a funny old phrase that we use, and it really sets it up, doesn't it? Because then people go, yeah, that is... Peter Kay's excellent at that stuff, I think.
Yeah,
in
like
some of his
for
acts.
example, my Facebook timeline, I'm like, is it just me who has like whack jobs as friends on Facebook? Like, is it just me who has friends who put up their life story? So obviously I know other people experience this too. Again, like it comes back to relatability. Facebook is a big part of the new show, like the types of people that you see. I was always very observant growing up and very nosy. So I love when there's absolute murder on Facebook, because I've learned to start screenshotting people's statuses because they delete them the next day then, and I keep them in the archives.
Yeah, exactly. There's a whole show too in sort of like, how would you describe it? Subtle brags on social media, whereby, it's the person, they're going through a horrible situation, but they get in a bit of information like that. Oh, it's terrible being well known. You just can't walk down the street with people coming up to you. You know what I mean? It's like... these subtle brags.
Yeah.
There was another one I saw recently where someone said, what did they say? Oh, great to see the local GEA team with their success, but I can't make it tonight because I'm in Tenerife. There's a whole show in these humble brags, I love it. But anyway, that's not what you're at. That's just something separate altogether. So you're in Letterkenny tonight, so it's short notice, but what a lovely Thursday night out for some people. You've a couple of fans up here already messaging in who work nights and they can't get along to see you tonight, and they're gutted, Enya.
Well, I hope to be back again. It's my first time in Donegal, in Letterkenny, so we will build on it. I'll return. We'll have another show, hopefully maybe early 2025 if we're lucky. But there will be plenty of opportunities. It's not going to be a one and done type of show. Like, I will be back.
And are you having fun now that this is at least part of your career? I know you're used to be a market executive. You're also a fitness trainer as well. So you're busy. But is it wonderful to be able to go out and meet the people off the back of something that started in 2014 with some funny videos?
Yeah, and you see a lot of return customers coming back to the shows. Like, you notice it in the DMs, like, the history of the chat. They've come to all my shows, and I really respect that. And it's getting to the stage now where people are coming to see me who probably aren't even a fan of the videos. They probably never even watched me online.
Yeah.
And that's the hope as well.
Yeah, you've crossed over. Brilliant stuff, Anya. So you're in on Green on tonight?
Tonight, yeah.
Brilliant
I'm going to leave shortly now, the 3-hour drive.
All right, well, drive safe, and we look forward to seeing you, and I'll remind people of where they can get tickets once I say goodbye. So goodbye, Anya.
Thanks, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. That's Ena Martin, who is a comedian. Her show, Is It Just Me?, is on Green on Theatre tonight. And maybe you weren't aware of it. Enya's very, very funny. Lots of people texting in saying they love her, and it's very relatable stuff, because you know what? All of our experiences are kind of similar. It all comes down to the skill of someone like Enya in delivering it. You can get on to ongreenon.com, book your tickets, or give the box office a call, and I'm sure they will be able to sort you out for a ticket. Just some comments before we go. The last ship to visit and deliver into Letterkenny was in 1981 at the Thorn Pier near the present-day rugby club, ending nearly 4 centuries of inland sea transport history to the town. And we think we're progressing. I totally agree with Joe. We should be able to dam our lakes in rural areas, indeed. But look, we insist in this country of... Have you ever noticed that you go to Portugal or Spain and... they've got a very, very dry climate. Never any problem with water. They source their water, as far as I understand, different ways underwater. underground, I beg your pardon. I mean, we have this situation where we effectively fill a bucket, and no matter how much it rains, that bucket can only hold a certain amount of water, and then we start drawing off that bucket, and then we're reliant on the rain to come by chance and fill it again. There has to be a better way. By the way, if you want to go and see Enya tonight, we're giving away tickets, so you can get on over to our social media, Facebook Highland Hub, and on our Instagram for a chance to win tickets to go and see that show tonight. Big shout out to all the kids, especially Mikey, being treated to a wonderful trip out tonight, going from Arnmore Island to see the Finn Harps game. Big effort to arrange this by People and Ferries. Hope you have a great time, and hopefully you have the right result as well. I always enjoy your slots with Dr. Joe. Our history is so important, and I'd love this local history to be part of the school curriculum for all of our students. I think a lot of our local history teachers would definitely. I mean, I remember even in national school, Master Ferreter taking us out on field trips to go around and look at the history of our local area. So it does go on, but maybe you're saying in a more organised fashion. Hey, everybody, have a lovely Thursday. We're back with you tomorrow morning from 9 from me, Greg Hughes, and the team. Have a good day. John Breslin is next.
Hello, Declan Lerner here. Looking forward to seeing all our dancing friends in the Plaza on Crana this Saturday night. Dancing 10 to 12. Admission €15. That's the Plaza, Buncrana.
For all your training needs, Northwest Forest Services Training Department Ballybofey offer a wide range of training courses from training bodies such as